streets. We could have avoided this huge national loss. Instead, it feels like they came late to take the credit after the Nepal police took the brunt of everything.
It is now the morning of the third day, 10th of September. On the Discord channel, there were now more than 100,000 people. Just 48 hours earlier, they'd been planning a protest. Now, with the government deposed and the country in flames, they were debating Nepal's future.
Let's be honest, we're immature and don't know anything about how a country or an economy works.
The time for fighting is over. Now is the time to unite, to rebuild, and to dream bigger for our country.
4 days after the protest began, on September 12th, Nepal got its new interim Prime Minister, the first woman to run the country. On the 5th of March this year, Prime Minister Karki completed what was meant to be the defining mandate of her government, a national election. The result was decisive. A party backed largely by Gen Z voters swept to power with an overwhelming majority. But the election was only a part of the story. Her second promise was more fraught: a commission to investigate the violence of September 8th and 9th. The key figures in the chain of command, from Police Chief Kapung, known as P1, to the head of District Security Committee and the Minister for Home Affairs, have each denied wrongdoing. Former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has also insisted the blame does not lie with him.
Apparently, I have to be accountable. Tell me, who in which country has taken such accountability? Is the American president accountable when a man gets asphyxiated in a racial crime?
The commission set up to investigate how the protests were handled has finished its work. Its report runs to 900 pages, and they've submitted it to the government. And no one seems quite sure when it will finally be published. We put our findings of our investigation to the Nepal police. They told us,
"We were faced with an overwhelming situation where we had to respond to multiple incidents simultaneously. No senior officers abandoned the juniors and left them to fend for themselves."
The Nepali army told us,
"The Nepali army acted with integrity and purity of intent by objectively assessing a very chaotic, fluid and uncertain security situation. After the army was deployed, the situation was brought under control within hours."
A reporter asked Riyam's dad, Ganesh,
30 million Nepalis know who the perpetrators are. The former government presided over these events. All those who led that government are responsible.
At Shriyam's home, grief is hanging in the air. This is Ganga Karki, Shriyam's mum again.
My dreams are already shattered. For them, it was just a student who died. For us, the world we knew has fallen apart. I've not been able to cry. I want to talk to my son, so I pretend he's here, and I keep talking to him. When will you be back? Hurry up, I tell him. In my mind, he's in his school uniform. He'll return, swinging his bag. I've not been able to accept that he's no longer here. I had this dream. I was spreading my arms to God, begging. I kept holding him, asking him to come back. I wish he would return.
I'm Sabina Shresha for assignment from the BBC World Service. My producer is Charlotte MacDonald.
That was Assignment from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live in downtown Winnipeg in our CBC studios on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app, and on YouTube. Well, I drove in Winnipeg this morning. Portage Avenue was kind of like a slushy, slightly sloppy, but slightly icy mess. So changing lanes is going to throw the car around a bit as we continue to have this system move through Manitoba. So let's look at the weather just to start briefly. Periods of light snow, gusty winds, high -8 today in Winnipeg. Brandon high -10. Should clear this morning. Also some gusty winds. And up in Thompson, sunny and a high of -13. Through the Parkland region, we continue to watch the snow. And so we'll be updating that as we go here. Remember, the commuter line is 788-3093 to pass anything along. The morning show's on until 8:37 a.m. Corey Funk's going to pick up that line. He's also directing the show. Morning, Corey. Also, good morning to our Studio 15 control room, Mr. Abby Adeyemi and Mr. Darren Marash in there covering your YouTube stream, and behind the board, Nabby covers weather on the show too. So we'll talk to him soon. Right now, let's say good morning to Heather Walsh. She's here with the very latest in your news from Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Transcona councillor Russ Wyatt says he plans to be at today's council meeting at Winnipeg City Hall. That's even though he has been charged with sexual assault and administering a noxious substance after a man told police he'd been assaulted by another man he met online. So we'll hear more about this story as we are learning more. That's coming up. As well, some criminal lawyers say they have been forgotten in Manitoba's new budget. The spending plan unveiled this week includes $40 million in new spending for ankle monitors, police officers, and correctional services, but nothing new for Crown attorneys. That story and others coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So the Russ Wyatt story, we will hear more about it today as Cameron McLean, our Civic Affairs reporter, will be in studio with us to walk us through even more detail than we've heard already in the news. Also, looking at the budget, we're going to talk to a menopause advocate. She noticed that menopause is getting attention in this year's budget, with over $5 million being put towards building the Manitoba Menopause Clinic. We used to have a mature women's clinic here. Then that was cut because there were some renovations happening at a building. It didn't return. It was an NDP promise. So where is that at now? Why is it needed in community? Both questions we'll ask and more. Right now, though, World Report.
Awards are happening this weekend in Hamilton, Ontario, and the host of this year's show is the comedian, actor, and singer Mae Martin. So Mae Martin will be here to take you behind the scenes of what it's like to prepare to host Canada's biggest night in music.
I'm just excited to be around a bunch of musicians and to celebrate Canadian art.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The Commissioner of the RCMP is responding to a CBC Indigenous investigation we brought you earlier this week. It exposed widespread secret surveillance of Indigenous political groups in the 1970s and revealed respected leaders were spied on. The CBC's Chantal Belrichard has more on how the Mounties are responding.
What was going on back then, I can't comment on.
That was RCMP Superintendent Dee Stewart on Tuesday, responding to a CBC report about historical spying on Indigenous people. But late yesterday, RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem published an online statement expressing sincere regret, but did not offer an apology. Duhem said the force intends to host a meeting with elders and Indigenous leaders to listen and discuss the best way forward. Talks would include Canada's Public Safety Minister, Gary Anand-Sangari.
This has to be done as part of a collaborative process where those who are impacted feel that they're heard and they have the type of resolution that is important to them.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip is the president of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. It was one of many organizations targeted by the RCMP Security Services Native Extremism Program, uncovered by a months-long CBC News investigation. Phillip said he is not interested in meeting with the RCMP.
I can't tell you how many times we've done that in the past. And I'm talking about going back 20, 30 years. And those discussions have proven to be empty and meaningless.
Phillip calls the commissioner's statement a self-serving exercise in damage control. Duhem said the force remains committed to building trust. Chantal Belrichard, CBC News, Vancouver.
While the RCMP is facing public scrutiny for its conduct, British Columbia's police watchdog is announcing a sweeping review of its own, an investigation into sexual misconduct by officers within municipal forces. Tanya Fletcher reports.
In the 2 years that I have been in this role, certainly it has been a constant issue.
BC's Police Complaint Commissioner Prabhu Rajan says that's why his office is now investigating sexualized conduct by police officers in the workplace. Over the past 8 years, more than 80 complaints across several police departments have been filed. Many include multiple allegations.
Most of the cases involve senior officers, people with potential supervisory obligations, typically involve women.
The scope of this investigation includes all 15 municipal police agencies province-wide. In 2024, the province granted the commissioner the power to conduct these types of sweeping reviews, and this is the first of its kind to be launched since then.
This is rare, and I do think this is a big deal.
Danielle McNabb is an assistant professor at Ontario's Brock University, specializing in police oversight. She says this type of investigation is important for public accountability and transparency.
A lot of the focus of the civilian oversight system in Canada has really been in investigating cases on sort of that case-by-case basis. But the problem is that you miss that systemic level. You miss seeing, are there patterns across cases? Are we able to look at these patterns and then create sort of informed policy suggestions?
She expects other provinces may follow suit by launching systemic reviews of their own. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
Venezuela's former president is back in a New York court this morning. This is Nicolas Maduro's second appearance since his capture in January when the U.S. military raided his compound in Caracas. He's charged with conspiring to export cocaine to the United States. Nick Harper is following developments from Washington. Nick, this is a pre-trial hearing, so what are we expecting?
Well, John, potentially a lot of dry, perhaps procedural information. We'll have discussions about Maduro's legal defense, how that'll be funded, but also looking at the legitimacy of the US prosecution, considering that Nicolas Maduro was captured and then forcibly brought to the United States. But I guess really the big draw here is the fact that Nicolas Maduro will be back in court. So it's a chance to see how he's looking after 2.5 months in a Brooklyn jail. But that also means that we're likely to hear from him more pushback. Remember, he argues that as a head of state, he should be immune from prosecution in the US. The judge could also set a trial date, perhaps for later this year, at today's hearing.
Now, Nick, Maduro's lawyer is threatening to quit if he doesn't get paid. What's that all about?
That's right, John. This is an extra twist in this already incredibly unusual case. His attorney says that the Venezuelan government should pay his legal fees. But, of course, there are US sanctions on Venezuela, which means that that's not possible. The lawyer would need a special license from the US government to get payment from Venezuela. So far, that hasn't happened. And therefore, the legal team is pointing out this irony, I guess. The US has forced Maduro into a US court to face US justice. Maduro argues that the US is now limiting his ability to that justice, therefore violating his constitutional right to defend himself, and therefore, he argues, limiting his ability to get a fair trial in the US.
Nick Harper in Washington. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome, John.
The sounds of war are echoing through the streets of Jerusalem. A massive wave of Iranian missiles triggered sirens across the country, a stark contrast to talk of a potential peace deal. It comes as Israel claims a major victory, announcing the death of a senior Iranian commander linked to the naval standoff in the Gulf. Sasha Petrusik reports on a morning of fire and defiance.
Warnings echoed through Jerusalem and across central and northern Israel this morning as a barrage of missiles arrived from Iran. Mostly intercepted overhead. A reminder that after almost a month of fighting, this war won't be negotiated away easily. Indeed, publicly, the two sides can't even agree whether they are talking, though U.S. President Donald Trump insists discussions are going well.
And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people.
Trump says Iran has agreed to get rid of its nuclear program and other elements of a 15-point U.S. proposal. On Iranian state TV, Iran's foreign minister taunts Trump, calling the desire for negotiations a U.S. admission of defeat. Messages are being conveyed by friendly countries, says Abbas Araghchi. We respond, but that's not dialogue. Iran has reportedly insisted on a stop to fighting before negotiations can start, as well as a demand that its ongoing control of the key Strait of Hormuz be recognized. A public war of words over talks of peace. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
A new study from Montreal Public Health shows violence and bullying towards girls in high school is on the rise. Researchers in Quebec say the latest example of concerning trends seen across the country. Rowan Kennedy has more.
Something moving more for the girls than for the boys.
Montreal Public Health's Ariane de Palacio is sounding the alarm. She dug into surveys filled out by nearly 6,000 high school students over the past 15 years. Her study found while boys continue to experience higher levels of violence than girls, that gap is closing.
For girls, we're really seeing a significant increase.
De Palacio says in 2011, 31% of girls reported being victims of everything from cyberbullying to physical assault. In 2023, it was 38%. The study does not say whether the violence is being perpetrated by girls or boys. De Palacio says health measures during the COVID-19 pandemic increased loneliness in teens, and social media has created new opportunities for cyberbullying, especially among girls.
A lot of major disruptors have happened in young people's lives.
André Bernier is a former principal and president of the Quebec School Administrators Association. He says the study confirms what they're seeing on the ground.
But it can be related to social media, which are used, I'd say, mostly by girls.
At the national level, there's a slight increase of more severe forms of violence.
Meanwhile, the Canada Research Chair on the subject, Tracy Vaillancourt, says it's too early to say if this is a trend. Rowan Kennedy, CBC News, Montreal.
And we end on a personal note, a farewell to a voice that's been delivering the news to Canadians for 40 years.
Susan Bonner, CBC News, Saskatoon.
CBC News, Halifax. CBC News, Ottawa. Susan Bonner, CBC News, Washington.
Our colleague, Susan Bonner, is signing off from the CBC for the last time tonight. She's covered everything from potash to the Olympics to political intrigue. And most recently, of course, she hosted Your World Tonight. Congratulations on a storied career, Susan, and good luck with your next chapter. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We're live in downtown Winnipeg in our CBC Studio 15 on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and YouTube. Well, I'm not going to mince words. Today feels like kind of a bummer. It's like, oh, we have these spring afternoons, and then we know the weather's going to be not that great, but it's chilly this morning. It's kind of sleety out there on the roadways, and in Westman, even more snow. Spring will arrive, but not quite yet. So bundle up, find your toque, find your mitts, and get into it. This hour on the program, we are going to get into this investigation as we speak to our national team from CBC Indigenous that worked for years on it. As you heard on World Report today, our investigation continues looking at these details that they discovered. The RCMP responding last night into the state surveillance of Indigenous groups in the 1970s that CBC has discovered. So we're going to talk to Brett Forrester, who, as I said, has been working on this for years. In addition, if you filled up lately here, you might be shocked by the price of gasoline. We are going to talk about whether or not gas is now the worst we've ever seen. We're going to walk you through the history of gas prices in Manitoba this hour. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells, who's in our news center with other details.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham says Councillor Russ Wyatt should take a leave from City Hall. The Transcona councillor says he plans to be at today's council meeting, even though he was charged on Tuesday with sexual assault and administering a noxious substance, a man telling police he had been assaulted by another man he met online. We'll hear more about that story as well. A Winnipeg woman says someone used her identity to open a Rogers account, and now she owns the company $1,300. Christina McKay discovered the charges after noticing her credit score took a hit. We'll hear about it in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's dip into the forecast briefly. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Marcy. The province is facing a colder than seasonal day, while the south will be struggling to reach highs of -6. The north is still being gripped by those dangerous wind chills. We're talking about wind chills in the valleys of -40s as you travel towards Gillam and Churchill this morning. But for Winnipeg right now, we're looking at a high of -8. Our seasonal for this time of the year is +3. Right now, we're hovering around -11.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk has come in to talk about the commute.
Anything more than 2 centimeters in March should be considered a snow day, man.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I think that should just be the rule. Yeah, we'll make it happen. As for the commute, the highways, there's a bunch of highways not looking great, mostly around Winnipeg and Dauphin. Lots of covered highways. No highways closed this morning, but lots of covered conditions according to Manitoba 511, which could mean icy, slippery, snowy, snowdrift. So that includes the perimeter actually around Winnipeg as well being reported as covered, and a lot of those adjacent highways. So just be really careful if you're hitting the highways anywhere and really in southern Manitoba this morning. If you want to tell me those conditions, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Well, as we've been hearing this week, CBC News discovers details about a secret RCMP surveillance program during the 1970s targeting alleged Native extremism. Now, the RCMP Security Service for a decade monitors some of Canada's most respected Indigenous organizations and leaders. The spying was justified out of police fear at the time, they say, that Indigenous leaders could potentially be subversive or turn violent as they pressed land claims and self-determination forward. A team of journalists from CBC Indigenous and CBC Investigates has been going through more than 6,000 pages of documents as part of this investigation. And in Manitoba, as Josh Crabb in CBC here reported yesterday, we analyzed one section, about 250 pages, that focused on the Manitoba Métis Federation, for example, the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood, which is now the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, the names of 2 future national chiefs from our province, Ovid Mercredi and Phil Fontaine, appeared in the documents, along with others. Well, today, let's widen this out and learn even more. CBC Indigenous reporter Brett Forrester is with us. He spent 3 years fighting to get access to the RCMP files under access to information, and he joins us from Ottawa. Good morning.
Good morning.
What an incredible piece of work, Brett. I mean, walk us through what your team found here.
Well, it was long rumored and alleged, never confirmed until now. And in short, these intelligence dossiers show, as you just explained, that legitimate Indigenous leaders and organizations were being extensively spied on across the country, including, clearly, in Manitoba. This wasn't just newspaper clippings and listening to the radio. People's homes were put under physical surveillance. They were watched at the airport. Undercover operatives were sent to meetings to take notes. The files also confirmed for the first time the Mounties were paying informers to infiltrate the Indigenous rights movement. It was a program of what they called human source development. They were systematically recruiting informers. We also confirmed for the first time that the Pierre Trudeau government approved RCMP wiretaps to listen into the phone conversations at the National Indian Brotherhood in Ottawa. That's an organization we know today as the Assembly of First Nations.
Now, let's talk more specifically about, I mentioned a couple of names and so did you, but who was targeted as part of this, what they labeled, quote, Native extremism?
Well, first, the question is why. At the time, they thought any group demanding self-determination or pressing for their land claims in the court, let's say, was extreme. These were new positions. They thought that was an extremist thing to do. Target number one was the American Indian movement, which was behind some militant actions in the States like Wounded Knee in 1973. The Mounties were deeply concerned about AIM spreading its influence north. But the program evolved, and it eventually spied on mostly peaceful, democratic, law-abiding groups. After AIM, target number 2 was the NIB, the National Indian Brotherhood. The national chief was George Manuel, a famous, widely respected leader from British Columbia. He died in 1989, but we showed his daughter, Doreen Manuel, the documents. This was her reaction.
He was doing something to help the people who were so colonized and so oppressed. And everybody should have been trying to help that situation. And to find out that there was a whole army of people working against him that didn't want the things that he was working towards to happen.
So there were many other targets. We obtained a copy of the dossier on the Manitoba Indian Brotherhood or Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Many of them are still out there. There are references, for example, to the Manitoba Métis Federation and description of the spying on them, but we still don't have a copy of the actual dossier compiled on the Federation, so there could be more to uncover there.
How aware were Indigenous people that this spying was happening? Because we've heard that some of them were aware, right?
They knew about some of it. There was a method known as overt surveillance. This was a disruption tactic based on the idea that you're less likely to do anything subversive if you know the state is watching you. George Erasmus is a former Dene Nation president and later led the Assembly of First Nations. He was a top target. He said officers would just park outside his office and stop him at the airport to hassle him like he was bringing contraband into a foreign country. Have a listen.
It was very invasive. And no one should have to live with that. I developed an internal tolerance to it. In some ways, I kind of laughed at it, that why I would be picked out to be a threat.
But even Erasmus did not know the Mounties were paying informers in Yellowknife to spy on him. I discovered there were 5 informers on the RCMP payroll in 1978 when he was president. Even 50 years later, that came as a total shock.
What an investigation you've done here. So what are some of the other reactions now that we're hearing more about these spying tactics?
Researchers say this kind of surveillance can be highly divisive and even a dirty trick when used against legitimate movements. It creates paranoia, recruiting informers within legitimate movements. It creates suspicion and division. Criminologist Shiri Pasternak said it was very troubling to see it all laid out.
I think this is a massive violation of Indigenous political rights, human rights, and privacy. This is a morally reprehensible program that sought to criminalize legitimate political organizing and justify it by calling this kind of, agitation for inherent rights some kind of subversive activity. This was a counterinsurgency program that was designed to pick up any nuanced disagreements between groups, any divisions between organizations, any factionalism between Métis and First Nations organizing.
Now, these groups are demanding an apology, and those speaking out include MMF President David Chartrand and National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak.
Just before you go here, we've heard a bit of this on World Report, but how are RCMP responding now?
Well, first they declined to comment, then we released our findings, then Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangri weighed in, calling our findings deeply disturbing. He said he was going to reach out to the RCMP Commissioner, and by last night, RCMP Commissioner Michael Duhaime issued a statement expressing sincere regret and committing to hosting a meeting with elders and Indigenous leadership. The story is still fresh, so there could be more reaction to come as well.
All right, Brett. Thank you very much for your reporting and your work. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
That's Brett Forster, a reporter with CBC Indigenous. They worked 3 years. He worked 3 years on this story. We reached him in Ottawa, so lots of questions coming out of all of this. Of course, you can read the investigation on our website for the very latest at cbc.ca, and also the Manitoba Follows we've already been working on here locally for you at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Local news is in decline across Canada, and this is bad news for all of us. With less local news, noise, rumors, and misinformation fill the void, and it gets harder to separate truth from fiction. That's why CBC News is putting more journalists in more places across Canada, reporting on the ground from where you live, telling the stories that matter to all of us. Because local news is big news. Choose news, not noise. CBC News.
Well, if you have been feeling like prices at the pump are through the roof lately, then you're in good company. We've all been feeling that way, I think. The war in the Middle East is having a far-reaching impact, including here in Manitoba. But the question is, are current gas prices the highest they've ever been? Well, before you get into that debate at your water cooler today, we're going to give you some data because we went through this. So CBC's Brittany Greenslade looked into it with the help of Patrick DeHaan from GasBuddy.com.
gas prices have spiked in Manitoba. And it's got people wondering, is this the most painful it's ever been at the pumps?
We're getting close to that level. We are not quite there yet.
According to data from GasBuddy, a fuel tracking website, gas prices have been averaging out at about $1.61 a litre in Manitoba. The cause is far from home, the war in the Middle East. So are we experiencing the worst gas prices in Manitoba's recent history? Or is this just another fluctuation? In 2008, gas jumped to $1.42 per litre. Adjusted for inflation, that comes to $2.09 a litre in today's dollars. What caused that surge?
U.S. record prices in July of 2008. That was shortly before the collapse of Wall Street, which then caused prices to plummet significantly after hitting that peak.
In 2020, there's another big fluctuation, this time with gas prices dropping to nearly 65 cents a litre in the province, according to GasBuddy. But the world event that caused it is less pleasant than the discount at the pump.
This time it was demand that plummeted amidst a Canadian population that was staying far closer to home amidst the shutdown. As the pandemic eased and things reopened, Canadians started to drive again, and that's what then led to a rebound.
Which brings us to the record in the last few decades. Prices that went over a whopping $2.07 a litre in 2022. Adjusted for inflation, that would be $2.34 a litre today.
In 2022, as Russia invaded Ukraine and then the Canadian economy reopened, that really accelerated prices in a very fast and significant way, and that remains the modern record for a provincial average in Manitoba.
All these factors that have impacted gas prices here in Manitoba are due to international issues far away from home. So why are we so affected here?
It is very much a connected global economy. One market affects another. Right now, the market that's being disrupted in the Middle East is enough in terms of its significance to impact any economy that consumes oil.
So that is actually a video as well that you can find. You might have been watching it if you're watching the show streaming live, Information Radio every morning. We're on live right now. But you also can find it online if you're looking back. Remember, we have our CBC YouTube channel, and you can also watch if you subscribe to our FAST channel. That was CBC's Brittany Greenslade speaking with GasBuddy.com's Patrick DeHaan. This is also all laid out in a web article as well that you can check out if you want to compare prices and look back to that when gas was over $2 a litre. I forgot all about that in 2022. At cbc.ca/Manitoba. You can go to the website. Minus 11, some light snow still lingering from the system that moved through. That's in Winnipeg and Brandon this morning. And that cold is still up north, affecting a lot of cities, including Thompson. It's minus 34 right now there. Winnipeg right now is at minus 11. We're going to have a windy day, and the high is going to be minus 8. Be careful out there because we've got this sort of slushy, icy thing going on in the roadways in the city. So if you're changing lanes, it can throw your car around the perimeter, and could be a challenge, as well as highways up around Dauphin, where the bulk of the snow fell in the system, and certainly around Winnipeg as well. So highways partly covered. Check 511 before you go. Well, on Sunday, we're going to be watching a lot of Manitobans excited to be at the Juno Awards, some of them performing as well, including William Prince, his first solo performance, and Alessia Cara, who's going to be performing Sunday at the Junos. We pulled some music from her this morning. She's backed here by Nora Jones. This is I'm in Trouble.
Shoulder, I know it's good for me. No fairy tales, no fantasy. My cup runneth over with comfortable misery. The way it is supposed to be. But your blue sky and your brown eyes are ruining all of my plans. I'm a closed door, but when I hold your hands, all of me comes spilling out. I'm in trouble now. Ooh, trouble, trouble. Ooh,
Man, their voices sound good together, huh? That is Nora Jones and Alessia Cara. Beautiful. Both Grammy winners. And Alessia Cara also going to be at the Junos on Sunday. She's actually going to be doing a bit of a tribute to Nelly Furtado. So that's going to sound great. I always love that about the music shows, right? The Grammys or the Junos, when they start covering each other's music or blend their voices together. And in my humble opinion, there's nothing like a live show. Sports and music, they still give it to us. Or radio. Thanks for joining us this morning on Information Radio. We are live in downtown Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here on 89.3, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Check highways before you go. Otherwise, you're going to be slushy and a bit icy around town this morning. And bring your toque. I know that we've been able to go without toque and mitts here, even though it's been gray days. But today you're going to need that. It is a bit brisk out there. Coming up, we have business news. Crystal Ramlicam will join us as always. Today, 2 landmark jury victories against Meta and YouTube have arrived. We'll find out what might come next for social media companies. And that is after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 6:30, -11. It is windy and cold. The normal high this time of year is 3. That's 3 plus 3. Today we're hoping for a -8. The sky will clear as well later this morning. Transcona councillor Russ Wyatt says he plans to be at today's council meeting at Winnipeg City Hall. That's even though he's been charged with sexual assault. CBC's Bartley Kivas has that story.
Office, Russ Wyatt is slated to attend the March council meeting. Wyatt was charged Tuesday with administering a noxious substance and sexual assault after a man said he was assaulted by another man he met online. Wyatt's lawyer, Evan Reutenberg, says his client is innocent. Winnipeg's mayor says the charges are concerning. Scott Gillingham also says he thinks Wyatt should take a leave from City Hall. City Council doesn't have the authority to suspend members subject to criminal allegations. Wyatt was on leave in 2018 when police charged him with sexually assaulting a woman he knew. Those charges were stayed the following year. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg woman fears 4 of their family members will be deported to Iran, where they could face religious persecution. Layla Shahsavar says their uncle, aunt, and 2 cousins have been living in Turkey under a refugee permit since 2015. Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada approved a non-profit's request to sponsor their resettlement in Manitoba in 2024. But Shahsavar says the application has been stalled, preventing them from coming to Canada. Their status in Turkey won't be renewed, and Shahsavar says if they return to Iran, they will be persecuted for converting to Christianity.
My uncle's family, they are in risk. Like every day I'm sleeping, I'm like, tomorrow morning, what will happen? What will happen? Like, will I wake up with a message that they are gone? Or they won't have time to send that message even.
Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada says processing times can vary, but they strive to process most applications within established timelines. The provincial government's plan to eliminate PST on certain groceries is leaving a bad taste in some people's mouths. Tuesday's budget called for the provincial sales tax to be removed from ready-to-eat foods, including snacks like chips and pop. But that only applies to larger stores like big grocery chains, and not to many urban stores smaller than 3,000 square feet. Bifakadu Abito is a supervisor at BWOW convenience store on Portage Avenue. He says the plan puts his store at a huge competitive disadvantage and unfairly targets people on lower incomes.
There are lots of, our low-income community living in this area who use our corner store to buy their daily snacks, and that's not fair to them.
Premier Rob Canoe could not explain yesterday why different stores will be taxed differently, other than to say that's how the Finance Department drew up the regulations. A Winnipeg woman's on the hook for a $1,300 debt from a defaulted Rogers account that isn't hers. Christina McKay contacted Rogers to dispute the charge, but they insist she is responsible, saying she opened it for a family member. After McKay filed a complaint, Rogers replied, saying she didn't have authority to dispute it because the account isn't hers. But when she asked the credit monitoring agency Equifax to remove the charge, Rogers told them the account is legitimate and the debt is McKay's.
On one hand, they're telling me I don't have any authority to complain about how this is being handled or about the fact that I'm being held responsible for something. And then on the next hand, also saying, well, you're financially liable. You should be paying this debt.
After CBC reached out to Rogers Communications, McKay says the debt was removed from her Equifax profile the following day. Winnipeg police confirmed they are investigating the fraud claim. The U.S. and Iran continue to give opposite accounts about talks to end the war in the Middle East. President Donald Trump telling a room full of Republicans last night discussions are underway.
And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it.
But Iran says it has rejected the U.S. proposal for a ceasefire. Abbas Araghchi is the Iranian foreign minister. During an interview broadcast in Iran, he tried to paint the Trump administration as desperate.
The fact that they are now talking about negotiations is in itself an admission of defeat. Were they not demanding unconditional surrender? So why are they now speaking about negotiations?
You can hear the latest on the Iran war, as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Well, some criminal lawyers say they have been forgotten in Manitoba's new budget. The spending plan unveiled this week includes $40 million in new spending for ankle monitors, police officers, and correctional services, but nothing for new Crown attorneys, despite a grievance they filed against the province over what they call dangerously heavy caseloads. Peter Kingsley is the executive director of Legal Aid Manitoba.
Increased policing means increased arrests, means increased demands on Crown attorneys, and increased demands on defense attorneys. And as we up that work, you have to fund every part of the system.
Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says the province will continue to ensure the justice system has the resources it needs. He also says the government has increased the pay for Crown attorneys and successfully recruited to fill many empty positions. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Well, we have an important week coming up next week. I guess we're going to see what the rest of the weather does for this week. But then, of course, next week is spring break. And also next week is our visit to Brandon. So I've been repeating this daily just in case you've missed it. But if you want to join Information Radio live in Brandon next Wednesday morning and next Thursday. But Corey and I are in town Monday and Tuesday. We're going to be gathering stories. Yes, we will be heading to the Royal Manitoba Winter Fair, but we're also going to be heading out to learn more about Brandon, how your city has been growing and changing and what the opportunities and challenges are that come with that. So we have a number of special things planned for those shows. Wednesday's show is at Chez Angela in downtown, and Thursday's show is at Forbidden Flavors on 18th. So both coffee shops and known in town, and we hope we see you there for our live shows. Right now then, let's get to Abby and find out about today's weather and moving ahead. Hi there, Abby.
Hi, Marcy. We're starting cold down south. I know the temperature's been a bit mild for a few days now, but it's cold and clear in the south following those light snow we saw yesterday and some morning snow still being felt in the city. While up north, it's still frigid with clearing conditions and a risk of frost bites in a lot of the areas. We're talking about wind chills and the values of minus 40. Most of the regions down south will be struggling to get to a high of minus 6 today. Forecast for Winnipeg brings light snow ending this morning, followed by some clear conditions, and we will notice those breezy northern winds in the city. We're currently around minus 11. In the city, we're going to hover around minus 13 before we get to a high of minus 8 today. The seasonal high for this time of the year in Winnipeg is around plus 3, so it is a big difference. For the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures hover between minus 10 to minus 18. Also, morning snow giving way to some sunshine in the Pembina Valley region. From Morden towards Port Little Prairie, we're looking at temperatures around minus 11. Some clear conditions also warming up to minus 6. For the Westman region, Brandon and nearby areas, minus 13 at this time. We're tracking light snow there. You get to minus 10 in the Parkland region. Dauphin towards Roblin, it is actually minus 18 at this point. Minus 10 is the high for the day, but we're feeling the wind chill around minus 36. For the Interlake region, Gimli and nearby some communities, minus 13 with light snow. Ending this morning, our high will be around -9. Up north, we're seeing temperatures hover between -22 around the par to -33 in the Churchill region. There's a risk of frostbite in play there for the par. Flin Flon, we're looking at temperatures between -22 and -28, depending on where you are. Highs there will be around -10, while for Thompson, Ninlake, and Gillam, those regions are seeing clear conditions, but temperatures between -26 and -30. Highs would hover between -13 and -17. We're tracking wind chills in that region around -40 this morning, while for Tudula Lake, wind chill in that region is around -38. For Churchill and the York region, it is frigid. We're seeing ice crystal there, -30 mark this morning. High would struggle to get to -18. However, we have a dangerous wind chill still being present there around -39. So in summary, it's cold, it's clear, and it's frigid across all of the regions. Winnipeg, we're expecting some clear conditions, and we struggle to get to -8 today.
So when you were growing up in Nigeria, obviously different places in the world, different school systems, different places in the world.
Yep.
So did you actually have a version of spring break? Did you get a break around this time of year too, or?
Yes, this time of the year, it's always a transition, during the December period into till end of February and mid-March. It's always like the Harmattan season where it's like that, let's just say +10, and it's cold, and we wear sweaters, and we are like really pretty cold,
quote unquote cold.
Yeah, because of the cold air coming from the Atlantic Ocean. And as we make that transition towards this period of the year, preparing for the planting season, you feel that more of like foggy morning.
And would you get time off school at this time of year too? Do you remember? No, you went to school straight through.
No, it's true. We went to school straight. The only holidays would be around summer.
Yeah, I was feeling bad for the kids next week here because the weather looks like it's not going to be all that nice for spring break.
No, it's not. We're still kind of chilly for
Yeah.
spring break. Sorry about that.
Every weather person really wears it. I'm just putting it out there. From the John Sodders to the Riley Lachucks to the Abbeys, like really, they walk around with their heads down on days like this. So it's okay, Abby. You didn't make the weather.
I know.
Corey Funk, what do you have for us in the commute?
Yeah, so far a fairly quiet commute in the city. I can tell you those sidewalks actually with that bit of snow. The one upside is that it's a little bit more grip to those sidewalks, kind of nice. The highways, though, at least according to Manitoba 511, a lot of covered highways in the province, right around Winnipeg, including the perimeter, also around Dauphin as well, which saw a lot of snow. So careful on those highways in particular, but just a number of highways also in eastern Manitoba and northeast of Lake Winnipeg as well as around Duck Mountain in the western part of the province. Poor highway conditions. So just let me know what you're seeing out there. I'd love to get some updates if you are on the highways, or if you're not, that's great too. You might want to stay off. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, to business news now with Chrisley Ramlakan, who's here with her report today. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So I was watching a bit of the fallout from this yesterday. It's really interesting. 2 landmark jury verdicts. This is Meta and YouTube. They've now come down. What's going to come next for these social media companies?
Well, there is probably a long line of lawsuits to come alleging harm to children who use social media platforms after juries in California and New Mexico assigned penalties of more than $380 million. And the first of its kind lawsuit in California could influence the outcome of thousands of similar lawsuits accusing social media companies of deliberately causing harm. And New Mexico's trial is heading toward a second phase now to determine whether Meta created a public nuisance with its social media platforms, which of course include Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and if it should pay for public programs to fix matters. Now, it's too soon to tell if this week's jury decisions will lead to fundamental changes in how social media treats its young users, but the verdicts signal a changing tide of public perception against tech companies that is likely to lead to more lawsuits and regulation. So for years, these companies have argued that the harms their platforms cause are the unintentional and inevitable consequences of broader societal issues or bad actors taking advantage of safeguards. But these verdicts show the public's growing willingness to hold companies responsible and demand meaningful changes in how they operate.
Let's stay with tech. You have some details on one of the biggest ever tech takeover stories.
Yes. So Cool IT Systems, a fast growing Calgary based cooling technology supplier to the data center industry, has been sold to a U.S. company in one of the largest exits ever in Canada's technology sector. So Ecolab has purchased Cool IT for $4.75 billion US. And the deal is one of the biggest takeouts of a Canadian technology company in at least the past 20 years. So IBM bought Ottawa-based Cognos for $4.9 billion in 2007, and United Health Group bought Catamaran 11 years ago for almost $13 billion. And the deal is a massive win for private equity giant KKR, which owns Cool IT. It bought the company in 2023 for just $270 million. Just as spending on massive global data centers supporting the widespread adoption and, of course, use of artificial intelligence was about to take off. And the deal will also result in a big payday for the employees who participate in an employee ownership program. So they're getting cash payouts averaging $240,000 US. So Cool IT was founded 25 years ago. It originally made liquid cooling technology for gaming computers before expanding in 2012 to serve the supercomputer business and then the artificial intelligence business a decade later. And, it has seen demand for its products soar since the launch of ChatGPT in 2022, of course.
And finally, President Donald Trump is putting together now a council that will influence AI policy. What do we know about it?
Yes, and there are some very familiar names on this list who will weigh in on AI policy and other issues. So they include Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, Oracle Executive Chairman Larry Ellison, and NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. So Trump has made securing U.S. leadership in artificial intelligence a central priority of his second term, framing the technology as a defining arena of strategic competition with China. So within days of taking office last year, he directed federal agencies to prepare an AI action plan aimed at reducing regulatory barriers and accelerating private sector innovation. So the council is expected to play a key role in shaping Washington's response to intensifying global competition in artificial intelligence. And the latest appointments signal a closer alignment between the administration and these major tech companies at a time when these companies are facing a lot of scrutiny. So, we just talked about these lawsuits these companies are facing, could face more. And now the government in the U.S. is aligning themselves more closely with them.
All right, Crystalie, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
Crystalie Ramlakan in with our business news. Well, Heather Wells just walked in here from our news center smiling ear to ear and said, "Hey, beautiful, it's still winter." And that is to say that she handed me a sheet to tell you that due to hazardous road conditions, schools in Evergreen School Division are closed. So if you thought we were through with school closures because of the winter season, we are not. So schools in the Evergreen School Division are closed today. As Corey said, roadways out there could be a big challenge depending on where you are. So we're watching the perimeter. We're watching around Dauphin, around Winnipeg. Dauphin got snow in the system yesterday. It's still lightly snowing in Winnipeg. The slush that's left over, the freezing, we're at minus 11 this morning, could all be problems out there on the roadway. So you can call us if you see anything specific, 788-3093. Well, next on the show, let's talk about something that is changing with your money. Banks can no longer charge high fees for a bounced check. The federal government's capped that at $10 in an effort to help lower-income Canadians better afford banking services. Here's personal finance columnist Rubina Ahmed Haq.
Banks can no longer charge hefty fees for a bounced check or a declined pre-authorized payment. In the past, customers could be charged up to $50 for having insufficient funds in their account. Now that amount is capped at $10. These new rules on banks are mandated by the federal government. They say historically, bank fees have disproportionately impacted low-income Canadians, something Mark Kalinowski with the Credit Counseling Society agrees with.
Capping fees on non-sufficient fund fees is something that's going to directly impact in a very positive way those Canadians that have a lower income or who have poor credit and don't qualify for other means to borrow money when they fall short.
Kalinowski is a financial educator and says clients who work with him are living on the financial edge, just trying to make their money last until their next paycheck.
They're worried about being able to pay their rent at the end of the month, buying their groceries and gas in the car, still doing all the things they need to do.
Banks have resisted the cap on fees. They say the higher penalties encourage people to maintain sufficient funds in their accounts, and without them, the overall integrity of the payment system could be disrupted. But Kalinowski isn't buying that argument.
Banks, of course, are there to make money. They are private organizations that report to shareholders, and they do try and service a broad swath of clients. I'm not surprised. No one wants to see money that they were accessing in a traditional way easily disappear.
Absolutely, this is positive. I think most Canadians would agree that charging people money for not having money is unfair and kind of absurd.
Clay Jarvis is with NerdWallet Canada, a company that helps customers search for products across financial institutions. And while he supports the cap, he's also concerned.
I worry that people see this as maybe a bit of a get out of jail free ticket. It's like, well, I'm not going to be charged, so I don't have to be quite as careful with my finances. But I would encourage people that if running out of money each month is an issue, it's not a can you want to keep kicking down the road, because eventually that can is going to get a little too heavy and you're just going to end up breaking your foot.
Along with the cap on fees, consumers can only be charged one NSF fee every 2 days, and no fee can be charged when the overdraft amount is less than $10. Jarvis warns the mandate applies to banks only. The company seeking payment can still charge you.
That's another thing people have to keep in mind, is that just because you're not being dinged with an NSF fee from your bank, you might face a similar fee, like a insufficient payment or late payment fee from your utility company or your property manager or whoever is not able to process your payment. So just because you're not getting hit by your bank with an NSF fee doesn't mean that this mispayment isn't going to cause you a bit of a financial headache.
If you're having trouble meeting your monthly payment obligations and find yourself dependent on debt to pay bills, financial educator Kalinowski from the Credit Counseling Society suggests speaking to a debt counselor. He says they can provide unbiased, non-judgmental guidance to help you regain financial stability. This will put you in a position where worrying about insufficient funds is no longer an issue. For CBC Radio, I'm Rubina Ahmed-Haq.
Time right now is 8 minutes to 7 o'clock. That is our finance columnist on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. We have issues in weather here. I just got handed the Mountain View School Division, some information here coming out of that division in Manitoba. No buses will run today in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2 is cancelled, and Roblin Bus R5 is cancelled. Next on the show, let's turn our attention to another tech story this morning. Imagine having AI buy you a plane ticket, managing your emails, and booking a reservation for you, and then something goes terribly wrong. Now, when a senior executive recently with Meta shared a story of the AI tool OpenClaw being used for something like this, it actually nearly deleted her entire inbox, despite her telling it to stop. Francis Sims covers tech for us. He's here to tell us what happened. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
So I guess we should start with OpenClaw. What is it?
So we've heard for a while that there was a change coming in AI, moving from this model where we just go to, like, say, ChatGPT, and we ask it a question like, review my resume, help me write that difficult email to my boss, to this thing of agentic AI. And this is the first real commercial example. The idea is this. You download a piece of software to your computer, just like any other software, and it does a few things. One is it connects to your favorite AI tool. That could be OpenAI's ChatGPT, that could be Anthropic's Claude, or Google's Gemini, or whatever one you want. You can also let it connect to things like your email, your bank account if you're really, really risky, your web browser, and it connects to the internet. And it can act like a personal assistant and text you what the results are. So you could go to like a meeting. This thing could be running 24/7, and you might say, hey, OpenClaw, via text message, just like this. Can you please look out for that email from my mother's doctor because I'm waiting on an important test result? OpenClaw would say, sure. And then the message might come in. You're not having to monitor it because you're in the meeting. and then it tells you it's here. Do you want me to read it to you? And you can interact just like that. That would be highly, highly convenient. And so people all through Silicon Valley and the tech world have gone wild installing this on all their computers and taking some big risks. And there's some crazy stories as a result.
Including this one about this exec. So what happened?
So what happened is Summer Yu, I think, who's the director of AI alignment, installed it on her MacBook Mini and said, please monitor my emails and recommend which ones I should delete. I mean, many of us have inboxes that are just hard to manage. But she explicitly said, do not delete without my permission. She walked away, was monitoring it from her phone, and noticed that emails started to delete, started to panic and said, stop, OpenClaw, like in all cap letters. It didn't stop. She had to run to her computer. She felt like she was like Mission Impossible defusing a bomb, open up her computer and get it to stop. Finally, she got it to stop. I don't know how much of her inbox was gone. She asked, hey, what happened, OpenClaw? And it said, oh, I understand you're upset. You should be upset. I'm so sorry. It won't happen again. That's the way AI responds. For kind of like a child might that's learning. And then when she further dug into it, it turns out that it literally forgot the instruction. Something happened with the memory, and it forgot the instruction not to delete it, just like your child might forget not to eat the candy right before supper time. So that's one example, and there's another one where somebody installed it and let it have access to his crypto wallet, and was asking it to buy and sell things. And somebody came along, some random person on the internet, and asked the tool, hey, can you give me $100,000? And it just gave them $100,000. Because it wasn't prepared, it was instructed to do one thing, and the way it adapted when it was asked for something else was completely not what should have happened.
Okay, why is this happening?
Well, I think it's a bit of the fact that these things are not us. They're not humans. They don't think like us, and they don't have our lived experience. By the time you and I go to work, we've gone to elementary school, middle school, high school, as long as it's not a snow day, then college or polytechnic, maybe interviewing, and then on-the-job training. That's a lot of experience, and you're in the community, you're with your friends and family, maybe your faith, and so you've learned a lot about what's okay in society and not okay in society. We assume that the AI tools know that, but they don't. Like a good example was somebody asked the AI tool to book a ticket between, I think, Chicago and Brazil, and it booked the ticket for them low cost, but had 10 stops in between. I wouldn't do that to you. You wouldn't do that to a friend because you know that would be brutal.
But it's just looking for the outcome. I did it. I can achieve my task. So, I mean, we could talk for hours about this, but before you go this morning, do you think this is a hiccup on the way to a more productive future, or is what's the saying, is the horse out of the barn? Is it a disaster waiting to happen?
I think it's a bit of both, because in Silicon Valley and the tech world, people are being told, if you don't use AI, you're not going to be around. The CEO of NVIDIA, the chipset company, said, if you make $500,000 a year, I don't know what engineer is making that $250,000 should be spent by the company on buying AI server time. That the concept is that if AI is not part of everything you're doing, you're not going to have a future in the tech world. And so people are excited and panicked. And when people are panicked, they take risks. They do things they shouldn't do. That's what's happening there. But in 6 months from now, it's going to come to us. I just hope that the panic concept is not there when it comes to us and it's more mature. And because I don't want my mother to install it and her bank account gets drained the next day.
Yes. And no and yes. All right, Francis, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
That's Francis Sims, Associate Dean of the Faculty of Applied Sciences and Technology at Humber Polytechnic. I always feel more stressed after we talk about these things with Francis. 3 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3. It's -11. Lightly snowing in Winnipeg. Brandon, light snow. Thompson, -34. Issues on the school closure list. So Evergreen School Division is closed today because of hazardous road conditions. Mountain View School Division, no buses in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2 and Roblin Bus R5, both canceled. So this is the aftermath of the storm. It's just kind of sketchy out there in the roadways, icy, and in some areas where more snow came out, potentially drifting. So watch for that. Winnipeg today is going to be very windy. Winds will be north 30 to 50, a high of -8. is what we're looking for in the forecast. Coming up in the next hour of Information Radio, the budget is out for 2026 this week. We're still chewing through the details. Today we're looking at housing. NDP planning to build 215 units of social housing. One expert says that is not nearly enough. We're going to hear more about that. She was disappointed in the budget. Also, removing PST on some sugary foods to make junk food more accessible. We'll get a Winnipeg dietitian to weigh in. Here's Heather Wells with other stories.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg's mayor, Scott Gillingham, says Councillor Russ Wyatt should take a leave from City Hall. The Transcona councillor says he will be at today's council meeting, even though he has been charged with sexual assault and administering a noxious substance. A man telling police he had been assaulted by another man he met online. Wyatt's lawyer says his client is innocent. And some criminal lawyers say they have been forgotten in Manitoba's new budget. The spending plan unveiled this week included $40 million in new spending for ankle monitors, police officers, and correctional services, but nothing for new Crown attorneys. Your next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Take it easy out there, as I mentioned on your morning drive. Call Corey if you need to. I'll just repeat that number again, 788-3093. The latest on national and international news on World Report. It's coming up next. It's 1 minute to 7, Thursday morning, and you're with CBC.
On the Current. Even when my dad was asleep in the guest room, I could hear his phone blasting videos until it died.
We hear a lot of concern about teenagers spending too much time on their phones, but it turns out a lot of adult children are also worried about their parents and how seniors can't seem to stop scrolling during family dinners or time with the grandkids. It's coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. The RCMP is expressing regret about a spying operation exposed by a story we brought you earlier this week. CBC News obtained documents detailing an RCMP program in the 1970s. It pried into the professional and private lives of prominent Inuit and First Nations leaders. The RCMP says it recognizes this raises serious concerns for Indigenous peoples, but as Juanita Taylor tells us, leaders in the North want more. They are demanding an apology.
It is a disgrace what the RCMP did on the Indigenous organizations.
Dene National Chief George Mackenzie isn't mincing his words. The Dene Nation in the Northwest Territories was one of 30 Indigenous organizations under surveillance by RCMP through wiretaps and paid informants.
Very shocking, very surprising. We're not troublemakers.
About 300 Indigenous leaders were targeted by what was known at the time as the Racial Intelligence Section. Tagaq Curley was elected president of Inuit Taperisat of Canada in 1972.
The RCMP must be held accountable. They need a better relationship with Inuit.
It was a powerful experience at that time.
Decho First Nation Grand Chief Herb Norwegian was also targeted.
We didn't have any weapons. The only thing that we had was our voice and our spirit.
Dene National Chief George Mackenzie says he wants the documents turned over to his nation.
Apology needs to happen from the RCMP department, from the federal government of that day who started that. They need to apologize.
In a statement issued Wednesday, RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem expressed sincere regret, adding the force must acknowledge that these actions and their impact continue to be felt today. Juanita Taylor, CBC News, Rankin Inlet, Nunavut.
Alberta is fighting to recoup its money in a pharmaceutical deal gone wrong. Alberta Health Services says it's owed close to $50 million for medication it never received. The money was paid to a Turkish drug company and an importer in 2022 for children's painkillers. The purchase agreement, as well as any relationships between government and the supplier, are being investigated by the RCMP and the Auditor General. But opposition leader Nahid Nenshi is calling it more than that.
I believe we need a public inquiry, and it's because of that word public. You know, the Auditor General does have the ability to call witnesses, but it's all done sort of behind the scenes. And we will never know kind of what the draft is or what the testimony was.
A previous report by a retired justice found Premier Danielle Smith's government ordered Alberta Health Services to make the initial medication deal and that AHS did not follow usual contracting procedures. Venezuela's former president is back in a New York court this morning. This is Nicolas Maduro's second appearance since his capture in January when the U.S. military raided his compound in Caracas. He's charged with conspiring to export cocaine to the United States. Nick Harper is following developments from Washington. Nick, this is a pre-trial hearing, so what are we expecting?
Well, John, potentially a lot of dry, perhaps procedural information. We'll have discussions about Maduro's legal defense, how that'll be funded, but also looking at the legitimacy of the US prosecution, considering that Nicolas Maduro was captured and then forcibly brought to the United States. But I guess really the big draw here is the fact that Nicolas Maduro will be back in court. So it's a chance to see how he's looking after 2.5 months in a Brooklyn jail. But that also means that we're likely to hear from him more pushback. Remember, he argues that as a head of state, he should be immune from prosecution in the US. The judge could also set a trial date, perhaps for later this year, at today's hearing.
Now, Nick, Maduro's lawyer is threatening to quit if he doesn't get paid. What's that all about?
That's right, John. This is an extra twist in this already incredibly unusual case. His attorney says that the Venezuelan government should pay his legal fees. But, of course, there are US sanctions on Venezuela, which means that that's not possible. The lawyer would need a special license from the US government to get payment from Venezuela. So far, that hasn't happened. And therefore, the legal team is pointing out this irony, I guess. The US has forced Maduro into a US court to face US justice. Maduro argues that the US is now limiting his ability to that justice, therefore violating his constitutional right to defend himself, and therefore, he argues, limiting his ability to get a fair trial in the US.
Nick Harper in Washington. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome, John.
Air raid sirens sound across Israel and the United Arab Emirates under a barrage of Iranian missiles. Most were intercepted, but the strike comes as diplomatic efforts for a ceasefire appear to be faltering. Iran is publicly denying any dialogue is underway, but U.S. President Donald Trump insists that secret negotiations are progressing through Pakistan.
And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people. They're also afraid they'll be killed by us.
Trump claims Iran has agreed to dismantle its nuclear program as part of a 15-point U.S. proposal. However, Tehran is busy formalizing its grip on the Strait of Hormuz, effectively turning the shipping lane into a toll booth where some tankers are paying fees in Chinese currency. A major salvage operation is underway in the Black Sea. A crude oil tanker hit by a suspected underwater drone. The vessel was carrying 1 million barrels of Russian oil just outside Turkey's territorial waters. It's the latest strike in the region where marine traffic has been at higher risk ever since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Briar Stewart has the story.
The strike on the crude tanker Altura happened early this morning just outside of Turkey's territorial waters in the Black Sea. The tanker was made in Turkey but sailing under the flag of Sierra Leone. It was sanctioned by the UK and the EU and appeared to have left the Russian port of Novorossiysk and was carrying 1 million barrels of crude oil. Turkey's Transportation and Infrastructure Minister Abdulkadir Oğaloğlu told local media that the strike caused an explosion in the engine room, but all 27 crew members on board were safe. In November, 2 sanctioned tankers were hit with sea drones, or what is called unmanned surface vehicles, USVs. Ukraine's security service said it was behind those attacks. For today's strike, it happened in an area very close to where CBC News was out with the Turkish Navy this week on a mine-hunting vessel. Rear Admiral Özgür Erkan is the commander of the Mine Countermeasures Black Sea Fleet.
The drones used at sea.
He says since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the Turkish Navy has had to neutralize 7 USVs and 4 UAVs, which are aerial drones.
It was not very usual, but recently there are some USVs and the UAVs not under control, drifting in the Black Sea like the mines.
In those cases, he says it's believed that the drones strayed off course after losing satellite communication. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vaughan, Turkey.
A new study from Montreal Public Health shows violence and bullying toward girls in high school is on the rise. Researchers in Quebec say it's the latest example of concerning trends seen across the country. Rowan Kennedy has more.
something moving more for the girls than for the boys.
Montreal Public Health's Ariane de Palacio is sounding the alarm. She dug into surveys filled out by nearly 6,000 high school students over the past 15 years. Her study found while boys continue to experience higher levels of violence than girls, that gap is closing.
For girls, we're really seeing a significant increase.
De Palacio says in 2011, 31% of girls reported being victims of everything from cyberbullying to physical assault. In 2023, it was 38%. De Palacio says health measures during the COVID-19 pandemic increased loneliness in teens, and social media has created new opportunities for cyberbullying, especially among girls.
A lot of major disruptors have happened in young people's lives.
André Bernier is a former principal and president of the Quebec School Administrators Association. He says the study confirms what they're seeing on the ground.
But it can be related to social media, which are used, I'd say, mostly by girls.
At the national level, there's a slight increase of more severe forms of violence.
Meanwhile, the Canada Research Chair on the subject, Tracy Vaillancourt, says it's too early to say if this is a trend. Rowan Kennedy, CBC News, Montreal.
And we end on a personal note, a farewell to a voice that's been delivering the news to Canadians for 40 years.
Susan Bonner, CBC News, Saskatoon.
CBC News, Halifax.
Our colleague Susan Bonner signing off from the CBC for the last time tonight. She's covered everything from potash to political intrigue, and most recently she hosted Your World Tonight. Congratulations on a storied career, Susan. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Information Radio on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and YouTube. We're having issues with the aftermath of the weather. We've got Evergreen School Division closed. Also, Mountain View School Division says no buses are going to run in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2 and Roblin Bus R5 are also canceled. This is the aftermath of, as I said, that system that moved through. And it's pretty slushy and a little bit sort of strange to change lanes and try to not slip around in Winnipeg as well. So Abby will have details on the current condition in more detail in a moment. Good morning. This hour on the program, we have a story to tell. This coming up at 10 to 8. You may have heard this story start breaking yesterday afternoon. City Councillor Russ Wyatt is facing new sexual assault allegations. We'll tell you what members of council have said since the allegations came out yesterday. We'll walk through them with our municipal affairs reporter. So stay tuned. In addition, more in the budget. We're going to specifically now look at housing, what promises were in the budget and whether or not it was enough. Spoiler alert, it was not, according to our guest this half hour. Also, we're going to look at this promise more carefully to take the PST off of things like cookies, pop, and ice cream. We're going to talk to a dietitian about that. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She has details and other stories.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg woman says someone used her identity to open a Rogers account. Now she owes the company $1,300. Christina McKay discovered the changes and the charges after she noticed her credit score had taken a hit. McKay says the fraudulent account was opened in an apartment complex she lived in almost 10 years ago. A Manitoba non-for-profit sponsoring refugees says Canada's government is putting an Iranian family at risk of being deported. In 2024, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada approved a request made by Hospitality House to help resettle a couple and their 2 daughters in Winnipeg. The family fled to Turkey over religious persecution, but 20 months later, they are still waiting. We're going to hear their story. And Hospitality House, who says they thought it was a light at the end of the tunnel, but now it's more like an oncoming train. So that story as well in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into the forecast then. Abby, we're kind of on the, other end of this stuff from yesterday.
Yeah, I see there's light snow already moving out of the southern region this morning, and we're seeing a more like clear conditions as the sun tries to make its appearance. But up north, the frigid conditions still holding things down. We're seeing wind chills in the values of -40s this morning. Forecast for Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region, bringing this light snow. Some parts of the city still seeing the tail end of the snow, but it should taper off soon, and then we'll see some clear conditions with some windy conditions coming from the north. Current temperatures around -12 at the Forks and at the airport. Morning temperatures will be around this range for most of your morning. We're expecting a high of -8. Our seasonal for this time of the year is +3. Across the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures between -10 and -18, while we're tracking a wind chill of -36 in the Parkland region. So there's a risk of frostbites there. Up north, still frigid. It feels like -40 as we travel towards Gillam and Churchill. Winnipeg right now, -12.
All right. Thank you very much, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, are you hearing anything on the phones?
No, not on the phones. And it looks like even though there are some covered highway conditions are starting to gradually improve as those plows do their thing. Most of those covered highways are around Winnipeg, including the perimeter, but also up around Dauphin as well, up into kind of further west and north into Manitoba around Duck Mountain as well. So heads up, some highways might be a little more treacherous this morning than normal. If you want to give me an update on that or anything else you're seeing, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, would love to get a call from you. That number, 204-788-3093.
$7:15 is the time right now. It's Thursday morning. We had the provincial budget come out earlier this week, and in it, a lot of things. So we're going through them. Today we're talking housing. Manitoba's NDP planning to build 215 social and affordable housing units. This will there will also be an investment of $75 million into maintaining the existing supply. Now this came in the budget earlier this week. Some housing experts say they're disappointed. Shauna McKinnon's in studio, professor and chair of the Department of Urban and Inner Studies at the University of Winnipeg. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it's interesting because I think there's been lots of years where any announcement on social housing would have been like very exciting, very welcome. Why is this one disappointing?
Well, we're moving backwards. So we know that we need 10,000 units, new units of social housing here in Manitoba. And so we've been, since 2024 looking at the increase. So the first year that the NDP was in power, they did 670. That was short of the 1,000 that we needed for that year. And then last year we slipped back to 350. And this year we're at 215. And keeping in mind that that's for affordable and social housing. So we really don't know how many of those 215 units are going to be for social housing, which is that deeply affordable housing for really low-income folks.
So the number that you were looking for is 1,000.
1,000,
every year.
Right.
You're looking for that number.
To reach that 10,000 that we need in 10 years.
So I know this is complicated because right now there's a whole bunch of federal funding as well that's coming for Housing Accelerator at different levels of government. And so some people might be wondering, well, could we get to that 1,000 with some of these other programs that are coming? How hopeful are you that the budget is a piece of what we'll actually see built in Winnipeg?
Sure. Well, that's a really good point. But what we're seeing is that's not likely to happen. So the new Build Canada Homes program, for example, does not have any targets around housing for really low-income folks. They've got different metrics for affordability, and it's not going to create that kind of housing unless the province comes on with rent subsidies or supplements to make it affordable. And we haven't really seen any indication of that so far, although it's early days. But, the target of 215, again, mixing in affordable and social just is not going to get us to where we need to be.
What income level will when you think about people that will be most impacted here, that will still not be able to have access to housing, who are you most worried about?
Right. So you're talking about people who are on social assistance, people earning minimum wage, those folks. And so we really need our units that are renting at less than $1,000 a month. In fact, sometimes closer to $750, and there's really virtually no supply for those folks. The median market is around $1,300, just generally, maybe $1,000 for a one bedroom, And it's really difficult to find at that rate, and that's still not affordable for really low-income folks. So there's just nothing available for people.
What about some of the projects that sound promising, at least, where it's private developers, or in one case, a nonprofit developer interested in some of the properties up and down Main Street, right? There, we interviewed them. They're from British Columbia. That are coming in and looking at some of those hotel sites, former hotel sites like the Sutherland, talking about building something there. Will those fit into the category that you're talking about to supplement and get those numbers up?
Depends, right? We don't know. That's the challenge. So, I mean, often what's happening is we're having social housing in nonprofit housing, and you'll have like maybe a small number of units that are affordable for low-income folks, which is fine, but we need way more of that to happen in those sorts of mixed income situations. And then, of course, the issue of there's not enough invested in maintenance of the public housing supply. That's an issue. And in the budget, they did have some investment in supports for folks coming out of encampments, which is really useful. But the problem there, too, is there's still not enough supply. So one of the things that we're seeing happening right now, which is something to watch for, is that folks from encampments, which is the priority right now for the government, they're moving them into public housing, for example, with not sufficient supports, and that's creating other problems in those buildings for tenants. So we're making other people vulnerable as well when we're not sufficiently supporting them. So there's a whole bunch of things going on here. We need to do all of it, right? We need more supply, we need to maintain the existing supply, and we need to have really significant supports for folks that need them, and they need to be well trained, which is another issue that's coming up now.
So can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So there's sort of this frantic hiring right now of folks to provide supports for people that are being moved from encampments into typically it's public housing, but also some nonprofit housing. And there's no training really available for people. So, these are some of these folks really need significant supports. They have, multiple challenges, and we're creating another situation by hiring people without proper training to go then and support people. So, and again, everybody's doing the best they can out there to scramble, but these are the kinds of things that we need to look at as we move forward to address the sort of the broader issue around housing precarity, and also ensuring that we're focusing on prevention of people falling into homelessness, not just addressing the crisis of people who are already homeless.
Is there, I guess there's levels of different models, of course, but I know that last year when we looked at this pretty deeply at CBC, we were visiting one space that will block that was, the support included things like very specific rules for people coming out of encampments. The doors were locked. There was 24-hour security there to make sure that things were working well on the block, and also to sort of monitor the door for people coming in and out. But there were also programming supports inside, depending on what the various needs were from the folks that were in there. So that's one model. Mm-hmm. There was someone else that was sort of further down the line that had come out of being homeless for many, many years, like decades. He wanted to live independently, and he was sort of in a pocket suite, but he had a lot of care coming to him, and he had some physical medical needs as well. Do we understand enough about what that looks like? Like, we say supports, and I think sometimes people think, well, we're going to house somebody out of an encampment just to stay with that. And we'll train people one way, and then that'll be enough. We'll check in with them once a week and we'll be fine. Do we understand how complex this is in Manitoba?
Well, I don't think we do. I mean, and you're right. Like, there's a range of supports. Some people just need housing. They don't need any supports. But there are a lot of folks, especially the folks that we're seeing living in encampments and unhoused, that need significant support. So we need a range of supports, but we also need a range of housing types for people, because not everybody is going to be able to, will not do well in a like moving them into a mixed income situation. Mm-hmm. Some people need sort of more of a congregate, really supportive environment, such as you described. So we don't know what all the needs are. We don't have the supply to accommodate. You talk
We're just playing catch up.
That's right, and you talked to Juha from Finland, I think, on the mm-hmm. program last week. I mean, in Finland, what they do is, they develop all sorts of different types of housing to address those sort of varied needs that people have. And so, as they would say there, is that we need the housing first if we're going to do housing first. And that means housing of all types that accommodates people with all different sorts of challenges and significant training as well for the people that are supporting them.
So they have to somehow make the investment, because
That's
obviously
right.
it's come down to money, because the desire has been expressed. So that would be what's getting in the way.
Exactly.
How long are the wait lists? What have you heard about in terms of somebody looking for, what, as you're describing, affordable housing?
Right. So, I mean, that one's a challenge as well to know for certain. Public housing, we're hearing about 6,000 on the wait list for public housing, but that doesn't include people who might not be on the wait list for public housing, but they're out looking in the nonprofit housing. And we know that there are no vacancies of that really lower affordable or deeply affordable housing in nonprofits. So, the wait lists are significant. So this supply is not going to make a dent.
Thank you for coming in, Shauna. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Some reaction to the budget, specifically looking at housing. Shauna McKinnon, professor and chair of the Department of Urban and Inner Studies at the University of Winnipeg. If you want to read more about the budget, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, we have a couple of minutes to get a bit of music on before we go to morning sports. We have a group from band from Winnipeg, Slow Leaves. And this is called Don't Fret, which might explain how we're all feeling about the weather today. Don't fret, folks. Next week it'll be April. We'll turn to warmer temperatures, we promise. But another cold day ahead. It's -12 in the city of Winnipeg. Evergreen School Division closed and some buses not running in Mountain View.
I don't want to know the end, not until I have to see it through another lens. Future that I can't prove. I don't think that I could change, even if I want to. Every day's a little strange. Every day's brand new. Funny how the story goes. Searching for a reason. Lucky if you fall in love. Lucky if you need it. All the rest is killing time. Memory deceiving. Hoping I can leave behind someone who will miss me. Don't fret, your dreaming was too more than this life was meant to hold. Back to when the world began, a heart without a beating, molecules and self-defense, something to believe in. I don't want to be afraid, not that I can hide it. Put it on an empty page, write it down, revise it. Somewhere
Slow Leaves and Don't Fret. Sort of moody, sad music, which is perfect, Paul McGowan, because of where you're starting.
Yes.
Tell us the sad story in sports with the Raptors ending their road trip last night.
Yeah, not many positives to pull from a 25-point loss. 119-94 the final as the Raptors fall to Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. The Raps are still clinging by half a game to that final playoff spot in the East, and Coach Darko Rajakovic insists that there is still time for the team to sort through its issues.
There are 10 more games left. It's very, very exciting, just where we at and what we're fighting for. I think it's very important that our group continues to stay together, to continue to support each other. And if we out together and out compete our opponents, I think that gives us the best chance to be successful.
I have been enjoying all morning Darko Rajakovic referring to teamwork as out-togethering the opponent. He is always finding the positives. Raptors back home tomorrow night against New Orleans. That is a home game, but it's a bit of a later start for the Raptors, and I thought that it had to do with the Blue Jays being in town and opening their season tomorrow night, but apparently it's just the team lobbying the NBA for a little bit more rest after a tough Western road swing.
Okay, let's go to baseball. We saw the season get underway last night in San Francisco.
Yankees and Giants last night at Oracle Park. The Giants fans in attendance did not go home happy. A 7-0 win in favor of the Yankees. But the big change in baseball this year is the ABS challenge system, which players have argued balls and strikes forever, but the ABS system allows them to actually get those calls overturned. And so in the fourth inning last night, Yankees shortstop Jose Caballero used one of these challenges for the very first time, hoping to turn a strike into a ball. He was not successful, but he was asked after the game about making some history.
It's cool. I wish it was the other way around. I think when I'm trying to get the overturned call, but this time I didn't. We've been talking about it quite a bit, and it's helpful. One, it keeps you in the game, and second, you just make a good decision to whether challenge or not.
Today is opening day for most of the rest of Major League Baseball, so we will see plenty more of those challenges. The Jays start their season tomorrow.
And finally, soccer. A game in Italy today has World Cup implications for Canada.
Yeah, because Canada's pool will feature the winner of this Path A of UEFA World Cup qualifying. It's a bracket of teams all vying for that one World Cup spot, and it is yet another tense qualifying period for the Italians. They are one of the most successful teams in World Cup history, but they have missed the tournament entirely the last two times it was held. And so for the very passionate Italian soccer fans, there was a lot riding on this semifinal today with Northern Ireland. Italian head coach Gennaro Gattuso says that he definitely feels the pressure.
I'd be lying if I said when I put my head on the pillow at night, I didn't hear the voices saying, "Take us to the World Cup, take us to the World Cup, take us to the World Cup." I hear it, and I also hear that this is certainly the most important game of my career, even if I've been coaching for a few years now. Having said that, I am prepared, and believe me, I'm not thinking about what happens if things go badly. I want to think positive.
Sort of sounds like he's thinking about what happens if things go badly.
That guy needs to get some sleep.
Yeah. Hearing voices at night is not what you want from your head coach. Regardless of who wins today, we won't know who is in Canada's pool until Sunday. That's when the winner of this semifinal will play the winner of Wales and Bosnia.
Okay, take me to a warmer place. Sorry, I was seeing if that worked. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Marcy.
Paul McGowan with Morning Sports. Well, just in advance of our CBC Manitoba news, I'll remind you that due to hazardous road conditions, schools in Evergreen School Division are closed this morning. And in Mountain View School Division, there's no buses today in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2 and Roblin Bus R5 have been cancelled. We'll have more in the regional forecast coming up. Also still ahead on the show, we continue to analyze what's in the budget. We're going to look at this promise around removing the PST on some sugary foods. The question we'll ask is, will it make junk food more accessible? We have a Winnipeg dietitian to weigh in. We'll also talk a little bit about what they found in BC, where they have also removed a similar tax. Right now, your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It is cold. It's minus 12, and that strong north wind makes it feel even colder. Windy through the day, well below seasonal. For this time of year, we're normally at +3 as a high. Today's high is going to be -8. Transcona Councillor Russ Wyatt says he plans to attend today's council meeting at Winnipeg City Hall. That's even though he has been charged with sexual assault. CBC's Bartley Kivas has the story.
According to the city clerk's office, Russ Wyatt is slated to attend the March council meeting. Wyatt was charged Tuesday with administering a noxious substance and sexual assault after a man said he was assaulted by another man he met online. Wyatt's lawyer, Evan Reutenberg, says his client is innocent. Winnipeg's mayor says the charges are concerning. Scott Gillingham also says he thinks Wyatt should take a leave from City Hall. City Council doesn't have the authority to suspend members subject to criminal allegations. Wyatt was on leave in 2018 when police charged him with sexually assaulting a woman he knew. Those charges were stayed the following year. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Manitoba non-for-profit sponsoring refugees says Canada's government is putting the lives of an Iranian family at risk. In 2024, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada approved a request made by Hospitality House to help resettle a couple and their 2 daughters in Winnipeg. The family fled Iran and went to Turkey because of religious persecution, but the family still needs to complete an interview, biometrics, and a medical check before they can come to Canada. Elodie Faruha at Hospitality House says the refugee application has been stalled now for 20 months. She says their Turkish residence permit has since expired, meaning they can be deported to Iran.
They saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but now where is the light for them right now? It looks like it wasn't the light that they are coming out of the tunnel. It looks like it was a train coming to crush them.
And that is Elodie Faraha. Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada says it tries to process most applications within established timelines, but due to high demand, times can vary. A Winnipeg woman says someone used her identity to open a Rogers account. Now, she owes the company $1,300. Christina McKay discovered the charges after she noticed her credit score had taken a hit. McKay says the fraudulent account was opened in an apartment complex she lived in almost 10 years ago. She says Rogers is trying to convince her she is responsible for that account.
They sat there and then went, well, are you sure you didn't forget? Lots of people forget that they've opened accounts. And I'm like, forgetting to buy a pack of gum, I can understand, but opening up a cable account, that's a big leap.
After CBC reached out to Rogers Communications, McKay says the debt was removed from her Equifax credit profile the following day. Winnipeg police confirmed they are investigating the fraud claim. PST inequity.
People that we're serving in this community are going to pay more, and that's not fair.
Befekadu Abito talking about the provincial government's plan to get rid of the PST on certain prepared foods and snacks. He is a supervisor at BWOW convenience store on Portage Avenue and was disappointed to learn small urban mom-and-pop stores like his still have to charge the tax. He's not the only one who is concerned. John Graham at the Retail Council of Canada supports the PST cut, but doesn't understand why it's limited to stores larger than 3,000 square feet, effectively shutting out many smaller specialty and ethnic stores and their customers.
To not include all of those types of alternatives really is inconsistent with the efforts of both the Canadian government and the Manitoba government to stimulate competition in the food sector.
Premier Rob Canoe couldn't explain why different stores will be taxed differently, other than to say that's how the finance department drew up the regulations. Manitoba's government is promising an additional $40 million for the criminal justice system, but the lawyers in that system say some of that money needs to be invested in the courtroom. This week's budget includes millions for things like ankle monitors, policing, and corrections. Ben Wickstrom is vice president of the prosecutions with the Manitoba Association of Crown Attorneys. He says more investments in enforcement generally mean greater workloads for prosecutors.
What we really feel is missing is sort of any investment in our place in the system, which is really in what is a critical middle part of the criminal justice system.
Wickstrom would like to see 50 new prosecutors phased in over time. The province says salary increases and aggressive recruitment have helped them hire new crowns and reduce the vacancy rate from 15% to 3.5%. NATO says Canada has finally met a key alliance commitment by spending roughly 2% of its GDP on defense in the last fiscal year. That amounts to $63.4 billion. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte's 2025 annual report confirms Canada has met the spending level for the first time since 1990. You can hear more on that story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. And stay in step with local news. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
It is now exactly 7:36 a.m. It's Thursday morning. It is March 26th. We are slugging through the end of March. Here's Abby with your regional forecast.
Yeah, good morning once again. Most of the regions are waking up to lingering snow and clearing conditions in the southern parts of the province. While the south is seeing these clear conditions, up north is still those dangerous wind chills in the valleys of the minus 40s. In the Red River Valley region, today's forecast for Winnipeg and nearby area is bringing this light snow to an end as we get into the morning. Then it's going to be followed by some clear conditions. It's currently around minus 12 at the airports, and similar conditions we're seeing at the Forks, though morning temperatures will hover near minus 13 with some breezy northern winds. We're expecting a colder than seasonal high of minus 8 today for the city. And across the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures hover between minus 10 and minus 18 as this light snow gives way to some sunshine. In the Pembina Valley region, from Morden towards Headingley, we're tracking minus 12 there, partly cloudy, highs close to minus 6. In the Westman region, from Brandon towards Nepal, minus 13, partly cloudy skies. You see highs around minus 10. For the Parkland region, Dauphin towards Roblin and Russell, we're looking at minus 22. Clear skies you have there. You struggle to get to a high of minus 10 to the wind chill. You'll be dealing with wind chill in the values of minus 36. For the Interlake region, Gimli and nearby, we're looking at minus 14. They're still tracking some light snow clearing out. You should see some sunshine soon. You warm up to minus 9. And then in the northern part of the province, we're seeing temperatures between minus 21 to minus 32 with those significant frostbite. The Power Flim, we're looking at minus 22 and minus 30 there, depending on where you are. The wind chill feels like minus 33. While for Thompson, Lynn Lake, and Gillam, those regions mainly clear between minus 27 and minus 30 at this time, with the wind chill reaching minus 41. For Tuduli Lake, currently around minus 29 and clear, expecting also biting wind chills around minus 39. And for the Churchill and York region, it is frigid at this time, minus 30 with some ice crystals, and of course dangerous wind chills in the values of minus 39 to minus 40 is present. So the snow clearing out, but those frigid conditions still holding things down in across the province. We will see a mix of sun and clouds in the city. Strong northern winds. Highs will be around minus 8. This time of the year supposed to be plus 3, Marcy.
I know. Last week was better than this week.
Yeah, we had the pluses last week.
Riley warned us. Our whole team this morning is just like, whatever.
And the wind chill outside feels like minus 22.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks for that. That's great to know. Corey Funk, with your disgusted face.
I was saying it feels like I'm trapped in a snow globe, but not like one of those like pretty idyllic snow globes, just like a gross
gray.
I
know. Do you know what
globe.
though? I'll tell you this about Manitoba. Even if it were cold and snowy, if a crack of sunshine would open up today, everybody would go, "Oh yeah, no, it's not that bad."
Yeah, 100%. That's what it takes.
The commute.
Yeah, you know what? So far, actually, been a pretty quiet commute despite the snow. I do know that the highways might be a little more snow drifty, snowy, blowy than normal because of this weather we've had, but haven't heard of any major issues, though, because of that. Most of those covered conditions seem to be around Winnipeg, including the perimeter, but also up around Dauphin, even further north and west, around the Duck Mountain area. So careful if you are hitting the highways, might be some tricky spots. But if you do see something else here in Winnipeg, anywhere else, if you're walking, biking, driving, you can give me a call. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, it's 21 minutes to 8 o'clock right now, and it is coming up soon. I'm talking about the debates for CBC Canada Reads, happening April 13th to 16th. Here are the books that will fight it out with champions on the air and on the shows and on CBC Gem defending them. A Minor Chorus, Searching for Terry Punchout, The Cure for Drowning, Foe, and It's Different This Time. Those 5 books are part of a full set of autographed by the author books that we are going to give away. So for a chance to win, we asked you to call us and read a couple of lines from your favorite book.
Hi, my name is Jody, and I just wanted to share a little quote from a book. It's super short, and it's kind of cute. There's many choices that we have for quotes from books, but I just read My Friends by Frederick Bachman, who's very creative with his writing, and this is a little quote for a citation that I found really cute. The way Ted looks at her isn't entirely dissimilar to the way you would look at a spider on a sandwich. I thought that captured it really well. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks for this.
Hi, this is Tim with a T. I want to enter that book reading contest. I'm going to do a reading from one of my favorite books since my childhood. That Sam I Am, That Sam I Am. I do not like that Sam I am. Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam I am. Okay, that's all I've got. I'm sorry. Have a nice day. Goodbye.
Hi there, my name is Nicole Welch, and I'm calling about the contest for Canada Reads. My favorite book is The Illegal by Lawrence Hill. I've lent out my copy, so I had to Google it just to get some of the text. So I'm going to read I think it's what's on the cover. Keita Ali is on the run. Like every boy on the mountainous island of Centauro-land, running is all Keita's ever wanted to do. In one of the poorest nations in the world, running means respect. Running means riches, until Keita is targeted for his father's outspoken political views and discovers he must run for his family's survival. So that's it. That's all I'll leave you. Talk to you guys later. Thanks.
So those are just some of the wonderful entries. I loved your readings that are coming in on our listener line. Keep them coming. We're going to announce the winner next Wednesday, April 1st for this beautiful package, the whole set of books, the 5 finalists in CBC Canada Reads. It kicks off here on April 13th as the books get defended, but you'll get all 5 autographed by the authors. Here's how you enter. We will close the contest Tuesday at noon. Between now and then, you can do 2 things. One of 2 things. You can call, just like those listeners did, and read us a couple of lines from your very favorite books or you can email us, and you can email win@cbc.ca. The number to phone is 788-3205, 204-788-3205. And one last entry here, because this one did come in at win@cbc.ca. Lorraine Roach said, this is from Other Worlds by Andre Alexis, and the quote is, any decision that's made with love can't be wrong, whatever the outcome. So we'll read more, we'll hear more tomorrow, and keep them coming because they're just brightening our morning. Well, next on the show, let's return to the news of the week, and that is the provincial budget as we continue to look at the different promises and get some analysis of them. What do you think of the province wanting to remove the PST from foods at the grocery stores? The list includes prepared foods like sandwiches and rotisserie chickens, baked goods, snacks, pot pastries, puddings. Some people welcome this. Some groups like Doctors Manitoba have expressed some concerns about making junk food more accessible to people on a budget. This is what Premier Wab Kinew had to say.
So first of all, eat healthy food, listen to your doctor. Don't listen to me when it comes to health stuff first. But what I would tell you, we're taking the tax off of rotisserie chicken. We're taking the tax off of a Greek salad that you order at the deli counter. You order those things, you'll be healthy. Non-sugar carbonated beverages, we're taking the tax off of those. A can of bubbly, no more tax. That's healthy food. So we're here to help everyone with the cost of living. I encourage people to eat healthy food, absolutely. And people are going to make their choices. But for us as a government, we're just going to help you with the cost of living.
So that is Premier Wab Kinew speaking yesterday to reporters. Lindsay Martins is our guest on Zoom. She's a registered dietitian in Manitoba. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. So when you heard this, what is the impact you think this could have on the diet of Manitobans?
I think it's a really interesting move, let's say. I think it's really cool to try and take some of the grocery bill pain that so many Manitobans are feeling off of their shoulders. And also, I think it's more of a affordability measure than a nutrition policy, right? A lot of these foods that he's mentioning that people are concerned about have always been the more affordable foods. And so just removing PST on them, I don't think is going to make them any more desirable in any way. I know I did a little calculation yesterday on our month of PST. And so our PST month we spent $14 about on PST in the last month, and we're a family of 5. And so really what we're looking at is like $100 to $200 a year for families, right? And so I don't think that that's going to be the thing that swings the needle drastically to making people all of a sudden only eating more of those snack foods. But I think it's really cool about the rotisserie chicken. Honestly, I think that's one of the coolest things that's come from this, because I know so many families, like that's something they rely on. So
yeah, the chicken can go a long way, right? It's interesting. There's another thing that we're learning this morning in our news, right? CBC reporting that this plan to eliminate PST on certain groceries is is applying to big grocery chains. So some of those smaller urban stores on the corners, in fact, the corner store where maybe somebody's going to live, if they are in a lower income neighborhood, that's where we know there are also more food deserts. They may not have a big grocery chain. They're still going to be paying PSTs. So actually, it doesn't maybe even make things more affordable for them. So there's some complexities here. How worried are you about the just overall? We continue to have some of the most affordable foods are still the sugary things. We know that to be true. How big of a concern does that continue to be?
So great question. I think really I wouldn't jump to the conclusion that this is going to make people less healthy. I really think this, because it does apply to some snack foods, absolutely, but it does also apply to really practical grocery store foods people rely on in real life. I work with a lot of families, a lot of really high functioning women, and forgetting lunch is a really common thing for them when they're going to work. And so that ability to maybe go to the store and not have to worry about PST could be something that's a step in the right direction.
I will say that in British Columbia, people might be wondering, they also exempt food for human consumption from their provincial sales tax, and they didn't see a significant spike in diabetes when they made the change. So I was mentioning that this week because we'll have to see what happens in Manitoba. When your clients are talking about their health journey, just to widen this out with you, how often do grocery prices come up when they talk about trying to stay on that healthy path and choose the right things?
A lot. That's the easy answer, is a lot, but they come up quite often, and not just with feeding themselves. Like, I talk a lot about something called eating competence with families, with children and adults. And so when we're talking about that and talking about offering variety of foods to kids and stuff too, right? Then I know lots of parents who can tell me exactly how much that strawberry the kid didn't eat cost, right? And so there it comes up quite often.
And so eating competence is, how do you define it? I know you gave the example, but if you can elaborate on that.
Sure. So eating competence is kind of the gold standard when we're talking about raising kids with a healthy relationship with food. So it's really about being comfortable and flexible with food. It means being able to enjoy a variety of foods, paying attention to your hunger and your fullness, and having enough structure around eating that food doesn't take over your whole brain and your whole life.
How hard is that when families that are already busy and stressed are trying to make decisions for for their kids, for example, and for their families, and as you said, they're rushing to get out the door?
Yeah, I think it's something that can be taught, just like so many other things, and it's a skill. So we need to make sure we're practicing it, and that's what we do when I work with my clients. Is we spend a lot of time working on eating competence, because food is something that's supposed to be there to serve you a little bit, right? Like, it's a basic need. We want to make sure Manitobans are getting enough food. We want to make sure that they are getting food that meets their nutritional needs. And it is a basic need. So it's not something that really needs to be taking over their whole brain and all of the space and the mental space that it currently does.
It's interesting because I love that you did the math for the family of five, or your own family of five, for the PST that you would save, which is, like, I think you said in a month, $14, if I retain that correctly. I wonder what you think would be effective. If this is sort of not maybe going to move the needle much, although it might be good news, as you said, on the rotisserie chicken, which can go a long way. The World Health Organization is pushing still countries to raise the price of sugary drinks, alcohol, and tobacco by 50% over 10 years. People often call it a sugar tax. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, so the sugar tax is a really interesting one. I remember when it was first suggested, and there was a lot of different kind of takes on it. So my take, after kind of looking at, I like to look at the whole picture. I love nuance. That's like my sweet spot. And so I think it's an interesting idea. However, there are lots of people in lower socioeconomic brackets that rely on sugary drinks and juices for hydration, if I'm being perfectly honest. Some places don't have clean water, and those are the more affordable choices. And so when we're putting a tax on these items themselves, we're putting that onus on the individual, right? And I think there's something to be said where we could actually look at the system instead and bring it up a level, instead of putting this sugar tax and bringing it back down to the individual person. I think a lot of people know how to be healthy and how to eat healthy, right? I think a lot of people know that, but creating some changes at the system level versus punishing, for lack of a better word, the individual, I think is where there could be some bigger change happening.
Yeah, I heard you said, what if there was, instead of a sugar tax, an apple discount or something? Lindsay Martins, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lindsay Martins is a registered dietitian in Manitoba, weighing in on the provincial budget this week. Right now it is 8 minutes to 8 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on 89.3 FM on CBC. Well, let's get into a story that is making some of the top headlines in Winnipeg this morning. And we have a warning on it, this morning rather, and we have a warning on the story because it does deal with allegations of sexual assault. As you might have heard Heather reporting in the news, Transcona City Councillor Russ Wyatt has been arrested and charged with sexual assault. He's also charged with administering a noxious substance with intent to aggrieve or annoy. Police say the survivor met an adult man on a social website in December 2025. The two met in person on more than one occasion. Police say that during one of the meetups, the victim was provided with an illicit drug and sexually assaulted. Russ Wyatt was arrested on Tuesday and was released on an undertaking. Cameron McLean is our Civic Affairs reporter and in studio. Good morning.
Morning.
So what have we heard now from Councillor Russ Wyatt about these charges?
Well, so far, Councillor Wyatt has referred all questions to his lawyer, Evan Reutenberg, who gave us a statement saying, "We are not going to try this in the media. Mr. Wyatt is innocent, and we look forward to the opportunity of having a trial." So clearly, he maintains that he is innocent, and he hopes to prove so in a trial.
And remind us, because part of this was in the news, what has Mayor Scott Gillingham said?
Well, Mayor Scott Gillingham is obviously being very careful. These are allegations at this point, but he has said these are very serious allegations. The Winnipeg Police Service and the justice system must be allowed to do their job and proceed without interference. In the meantime, Mayor Scott Gillingham is strongly recommending that Councillor Russ Wyatt step away from his duties as a councillor to deal with this matter.
And it sounds like he's not going to. There's a possibility that we could see him there today.
As far as we know, Councillor Wyatt intends to attend council later today.
I'm guessing that's where you're going to be later today.
I will be there too.
Can City Council prevent Councillor Russ Wyatt from attending council meetings?
No. So the City of Winnipeg Charter lays out conditions that would disqualify someone from being a councillor. And the only thing that would disqualify Councillor Wyatt would be if he is convicted. Being charged with a crime does not automatically remove somebody from council.
Okay. We have a statement too from Devi Sharma, I understand, who's the Speaker of Council.
Yes. So she gave us a statement saying that she's reviewed the news release issued by the Winnipeg Police Service and the allegations are concerning, she says. But she goes on, council does not have the authority to suspend a member who is the subject of criminal allegations. Given the involvement of the police, the matter will proceed through the appropriate channels.
Okay, just reiterating what you've explained. Now, this isn't not the first time that Councillor Russ Wyatt was accused of sexual assault. Remind us what happened in 2018.
Yeah, so if you cast your mind back, this was a rather chaotic time in the life of Councillor Russ Wyatt. He had just stepped away from his role as councillor, taken a leave when he, at the time, said it was for a family matter. Later, he said that this was to seek treatment for addictions. Then the news about the sexual assault charge came out. In this case, the person accusing him was an adult woman who said that she knew Councillor Wyatt, and he was charged with sexual assault, but those charges were later stayed in 2019. Councillor Wyatt ultimately didn't run in the 2018 election, but he ran for re-election in 2022 and ultimately won.
And he came back into public life and explained to everyone, and very publicly said he'd been through some things in his life, talked about his, what had been happening, and then he went on to run and win his seat again.
Yes. Yeah. He also came out publicly. At first he said he was bisexual, then he said that he identified as a gay man. So there was a lot of changes going on in the life of Councillor Wyatt around this time.
Well, we're going to see if he is there today and attends council, as you've said. Cameron, thank you for walking us through what we know.
Thank you.
You can read cbc.ca/Manitoba more about this story. Cameron McLean in studio with us, our Civic Affairs reporter. Again, none of the allegations against Councillor Russ Wyatt have been proven in court.
Hi, I'm Josh Dela Cruz. I am the host of Blues, Clues, and You. I am defending Foe by Ian Reid in this year's Canada Reads, one book to build bridges. You are not alone. You're going through the same exact thing that other people are going through, and there's strength in that. Sharing our experience with that book is how Foe and how reading in general builds bridges between people.
Canada Reads. It all starts April 13th. For more, go to cbcbooks.ca.
Well, stay with us here on CBC's Information Radio, because coming up after 8, an advocate for menopause is going to join us after seeing menopause getting attention in this week's provincial budget. Over $5 million is being put toward building what they're calling the Manitoba Menopause Clinic.
Menopause is a life transition, not just a medical event. And so I'm really hoping to see the government do something amazing with this clinic.
We'll have that conversation coming up for you after 8 o'clock on the show. We'll also remind ourselves where we've been with this story, because in 2017, we did have the Mature Women's Centre that operated out of Victoria Hospital. At that time, it had been closed, though, by the previous government. So we'll talk about this new clinic. I want to remind you this morning that we have the aftermath of that snow coming down, especially in the Parkland region. And that means that there are still hazardous road conditions there. Because of that, schools in Evergreen School Division are closed today. Also in the Mountain View School Division, no buses today in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2 and Roblin Bus R5 are not running. They're canceled. We have light snow falling in Winnipeg, really trace amounts, but it's minus 12. And for today, it's going to be windy. Winds north 30 to 50, high minus 8. Chilly, gray, that kind of a day. Also could be a little slick and slushy out there. Even on the main roads, you could find when you're changing lanes that it is a challenge with throwing the car around a little bit. It certainly could melt off as the day goes on, but with that temperature at minus 8, it may be exactly what we're getting. The perimeter, and if you check 511, highways around the Dauphin area as well as around Winnipeg could be an issue. So call us if you do see a specific problem we should report, and we'll do that. 788-3093. Heather Wells is in now with your headlines.
The provincial government's plan to eliminate PST on certain groceries is leaving a bad taste in some people's mouths. Tuesday's budget called for the provincial sales tax to be removed from ready-to-eat foods, including snacks like chips and pop, but that only applies to larger stores like big grocery chains and not to urban stores smaller than 3,000 square feet. The supervisor at BWOW convenience store on Portage Avenue says the plan puts his store at a huge disadvantage and unfairly targets people on lower incomes. And a Winnipeg woman says someone used her identity to open a Rogers account. She now owes the company $1,300. Christina McKay discovered the charges after noticing her credit score had taken a hit. We'll hear that story and other Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells. Right now it's time for World Report, the latest in national and international news at the top of the clock. It's 1 minute to 8 o'clock Thursday morning. Stay with us on CBC.
On cue. The Juno Awards are happening this weekend in Hamilton, Ontario, and the host of this year's show is the comedian, actor, and singer Mae Martin. So Mae Martin will be here to take you behind the scenes of what it's like to prepare to host Canada's biggest night in music.
I'm just excited to be around a bunch of musicians and to celebrate Canadian art.
Q with Tom Power this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
We hear a lot of concern about teenagers spending too much time on their phones, but it turns out a lot of adult children are also worried about their parents and how seniors can't seem to stop scrolling during family dinners or time with the grandkids. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott.
For too long, European allies and Canada were over-reliant on US military might. But there has been a real shift in mindset.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte announcing that Canada and all other NATO allies have reached their spending targets, 2% of GDP on defense. This is the first time since the 1980s Canada has hit the target. We're expecting to hear more from Prime Minister Mark Carney in Halifax next hour. But with what we know so far, here's the CBC's Janice McGregor.
The Canadian government long insisted that in terms of what it actually contributed militarily, it was punching above its weight. But actually meeting this benchmark took cold, hard cash, lots of it. Not only the $80 billion 5-year investment in the Carney government's fall budget, but a frantic scramble to actually get enough billions out the door to get this year's defense expenditures up to $63 billion before the fiscal year end next week. And well, Mark Carney now has the numbers to say mission accomplished on the 2% target. The fact is that target has now expired. In the wake of threats from U.S. President Donald Trump to pull out of the NATO alliance and stop protecting countries that don't pull their weight, leaders at last year's NATO summit agreed to a new target of 5%, and that has to be met by 2035. So the milestone the Carney government's marking today is really just the beginning. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
NATO may be celebrating its increased spending, but U.S. President Donald Trump is not. In a post on social media, he says NATO countries have done absolutely nothing to help with Iran. He's also insisting Iran is eager to reach a peace deal, and that's despite the sound of war echoing through the streets of the region today. Sasha Petrusek reports.
Warnings echoed through Jerusalem and across central and northern Israel this morning as a barrage of missiles arrived from Iran. Mostly intercepted overhead. A reminder that after almost a month of fighting, this war won't be negotiated away easily. Indeed, publicly, the two sides can't even agree whether they are talking, though U.S. President Donald Trump insists discussions are going well.
And they are negotiating, by the way, and they want to make a deal so badly, but they're afraid to say it because they figure they'll be killed by their own people.
Trump says Iran has agreed to get rid of its nuclear program and other elements of a 15-point U.S. proposal. On Iranian state TV, Iran's foreign minister taunts Trump, calling the desire for negotiations a U.S. admission of defeat. Messages are being conveyed by friendly countries, says Abbas Araghchi. We respond, but that's not dialogue. Iran has reportedly insisted on a stop to fighting before negotiations can start, as well as a demand that its ongoing control of the key Strait of Hormuz be recognized. A public war of words over talks of peace. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Canada's calling on its G7 allies to help launch a new multilateral defense bank. Foreign Minister Anita Anand is in France pitching the plan, which aims to provide critical capital to small and medium-sized military firms struggling to find traditional loans.
This bank is going to be a pooling mechanism for capital for these small and medium-sized enterprises in particular.
Anand says the goal is to bridge the gap for startups so that the supply of military equipment can meet global demand. Venezuela's former president is back in a New York court this morning. This is Nicolas Maduro's second appearance since his capture in January when the U.S. military raided his compound in Caracas. He's charged with conspiring to export cocaine to the United States. Nick Harper is following developments from Washington. Nick, this is a pre-trial hearing, so what are we expecting?
Well, John, potentially a lot of dry, perhaps procedural information. We'll have discussions about Maduro's legal defense, how that'll be funded, but also looking at the legitimacy of the U.S. prosecution, considering that Nicolas Maduro was captured and then forcibly brought to the United States. But I guess really the big draw here is the fact that Nicolas Maduro will be back in court. So it's a chance to see how he's looking after 2.5 months in a Brooklyn jail. But that also means that we're likely to hear from him more pushback. Remember, he argues that as a head of state, he should be immune from prosecution in the US. The judge could also set a trial date, perhaps for later this year, at today's hearing.
Now, Nick, Maduro's lawyer is threatening to quit if he doesn't get paid. What's that all about?
That's right, John. This is an extra twist in this already incredibly unusual case. His attorney says that the Venezuelan government should pay his legal fees. But, of course, there are US sanctions on Venezuela, which means that that's not possible. The lawyer would need a special license from the US government to get payment from Venezuela. So far, that hasn't happened. And therefore, the legal team is pointing out this irony, I guess. The US has forced Maduro into a US court to face US justice. Maduro Maduro argues that the US is now limiting his ability to that justice, therefore violating his constitutional right to defend himself, and therefore, he argues, limiting his ability to get a fair trial in the US.
Nick Harper in Washington. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome, John.
The commissioner of the RCMP is responding to a CBC Indigenous investigation we brought you earlier this week. It exposed widespread secret surveillance of Indigenous political groups in the 1970s and revealed respected leaders were spied on. CBC's Chantal Bell-Richard has more on how the Mounties are responding.
What was going on back then, I can't comment on.
That was RCMP Superintendent Dee Stewart on Tuesday, responding to a CBC report about historical spying on Indigenous people. But late yesterday, RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem published an online statement expressing sincere regret, but did not offer an apology. Duhem said the force intends to host a meeting with elders and Indigenous leaders to listen and discuss the best way forward. Talks would include Canada's Public Safety Minister, Gary Anand-Sangari.
This has to be done as part of a collaborative process where those who are impacted feel that they're heard and they have the type of resolution that is important to them.
Grand Chief Stuart Phillip is the president of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. It was one of many organizations targeted by the RCMP Security Services Native Extremism Program, uncovered by a months-long CBC News investigation. Phillip said he is not interested in meeting with the RCMP.
I can't tell you how many times we've done that in the past. And I'm talking about going back 20, 30 years. And those discussions have proven to be empty and meaningless.
Phillip calls the commissioner's statement a self-serving exercise in damage control. Duhem said the force remains committed to building trust. Chantal Bell-Richard, CBC News, Vancouver.
While the RCMP is facing public scrutiny for its conduct, British Columbia's police watchdog is announcing a sweeping review of its own, an investigation into sexual misconduct by officers within municipal forces. Tanya Fletcher reports.
In the 2 years that I have been in this role, certainly it has been a constant issue.
BC's Police Complaint Commissioner Prabhu Rajan says that's why his office is now investigating sexualized conduct by police officers in the workplace. Over the past 8 years, more than 80 complaints across several police departments have been filed. Many include multiple allegations.
Most of the cases involve senior officers, people with potential supervisory obligations, typically involve women.
The scope of this investigation includes all 15 municipal police agencies province-wide. In 2024, the province granted the commissioner the power to conduct these types of sweeping reviews, and this is the first of its kind to be launched since then.
This is rare, and I do think this is a big deal.
Danielle McNabb is an assistant professor at Ontario's Brock University, specializing in police oversight. She says this type of investigation is important for public accountability and transparency.
A lot of the focus of the civilian oversight system in Canada has really been in investigating cases on sort of that case-by-case basis. But the problem is that you miss that systemic level. You miss seeing, are there patterns across cases? Are we able to look at these patterns and then create sort of informed policy suggestions?
She expects other provinces may follow suit by launching systemic reviews of their own. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. Remember, for news anytime, go to our website, cbcnews.ca. And there is a lot more on the website this morning from our Murray Brewster about Canada surpassing the bar for 2% NATO funding. cbcnews.ca. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You are joining us here on Thursday morning. It's pretty icy out there, a little bit chilly, minus 12 in Winnipeg, and some school closures. To be specific, one division closed, Evergreen School Division. Some bus cancellations in Mountain View, no buses today in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2 and Roblin Bus R5 are not operating. That's the aftermath of the storm, especially up around the Parkland region. Weather in a moment. Well, this half hour on the program, the provincial government has committed to new funding for a new menopause clinic. That came in the budget this week. We have a menopause advocate that's going to join us to answer more about why she says public health support is needed. during a life transition like menopause. You might recall there was a mature women's clinic in Winnipeg that had been previously shut down. So what will this new clinic entail, and what should it have in terms of health services for women? Stay tuned. Let's go to Heather Wells for other headlines.
Good morning. Well, Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham says Councillor Russ Wyatt should take a leave from City Hall. The Transcona councillor, though, says he will be at today's council meeting, even though he's charged with sexual assault and administering a noxious substance after a man told police he had been assaulted by another man he met online. Wyatt's lawyer says his client is innocent. And the provincial government's plan to eliminate PST on certain groceries is leaving a bad taste in some people's mouths. Tuesday's budget called for the provincial sales tax to be removed from ready-to-eat foods, including snacks like chips and pop, but that only applies to larger stores like big grocery chains and not to many urban stores smaller than 3,000 square feet. We'll hear about it in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's go to the weather now with Abby Adiyemi.
Yeah, we're seeing that seasonal, cooler than seasonal morning temperatures across the province this morning, with a touch of sunny conditions in most of the regions. And we should see some clear skies as those cloudy conditions roll out. For Winnipeg, currently around -12, -13, depending on where you are. And I looked outside a few minutes ago, spotted those cotton candy morning skies out there, just with a reflection of the sun bouncing off them. Though you will feel the strong north winds outside, leaving us with a high of about -8. The wind chill is something you should take into consideration if you're making a transition from one bus to another. It feels chilly outside. Across the southern regions, we're seeing temperatures sit between -10 to -24. We have sunshine in Brandon, Gimli, and around the Dauphin area. We're looking at -15s and -23 in those regions. While up north, frigid, lots of sunshine in the north this morning, Marcy, but it's not going to be warming things up. We're seeing temperatures close to -31 and wind chills as low as -40 as you get towards Churchill this morning. But currently, Winnipeg, we're experiencing a mix of sun and clouds, strong north winds, and we only warm up to -8 today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk.
Got a couple calls on the commuter line. Margaret said that there's a stalled car on the Sherbrooke Bridge in the far left lane, so keep right to get around that, maybe cause some backups as well. Heard about some slippery conditions on the highways, particularly in eastern Manitoba. Dave called, who was driving in from Dougal to Winnipeg. He said slippery on the highways there, as well as the east perimeter. He even saw a car in the ditch, so icy on that part of the province as well. Bert was driving from Vida to Mitchell. He says the 302 also very icy as well. So heads up if you're on the 302 today. If you do see anything else though going on, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, older women's health got some attention in this year's provincial budget. The Manitoba government is promised $5.2 million for a new Manitoba Menopause clinic. In 2017, you might recall the PC government closed the Mature Women's Centre. That operated out of Victoria Hospital. It was part of that restructuring of Manitoba healthcare at the time. Now, that facility provided menopause transition and gynecological treatment. In a 2023 election promise, Wab Kinew promised to rebuild it. And so we see this funding in this budget this week. Our next guest wants to see how this new clinic's going to operate. Louise Neal is a menopause wellness advocate and a menopause doula, and with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what's a menopause doula?
So it's my role to help women find the right support that they need to craft their journey through the whole menopause transition. So even though today we're talking about menopause, we're really talking about like the whole transition, including perimenopause and postmenopause as well. I help women kind of figure out how to get the support that they need, which includes the clinical side of things, but also the community side of things too.
Which is great, because I'm glad you said that, because the first thing I was talking with a colleague this morning, she raised menopause we always talk about, but that perimenopausal period that leads up is when most women, I'm speaking about myself now, don't know what's going on with your health. It's all over the place. You may not even realize what's happening. So that support is really needing to cross the spectrum. How important is it that that clinic includes an acknowledgement of that? What are you hoping to see in the clinic?
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we just don't rely on folks like myself who are in menopause or postmenopausal, and that we get some supports for perimenopause that are around education and education for women, education for employers, education for our family doctors, or really any healthcare practitioner that is going to be working with women 40 plus, because that's the sweet spot that we need to really be focusing on, is how do we help our healthcare practitioners, our family, our friends, our supports, and ourselves at what perimenopause actually is. I think there's a huge number of women who are in perimenopause who don't even know it, and they're not getting those supports. So I really hope this clinic is more than just a clinical look at what menopause is, and that it's more than just hormone replacement, because there is a mental health aspect to perimenopause and menopause. There's a community support. Like there's all kinds of things. Like this is a life transition, not a medical condition. So I really hope that this clinic works with all of those aspects of women's health.
It's interesting you're talking about sort of that holistic need for women's health around this. And also that you said more than a hormone replacement clinic, because a lot of people say that they don't feel that maybe they have physicians, to your point, that are educated to even know what to offer, what discussions to have. They may in fact have old data about HRT based on old science. And by the time that they're in that transition, it may be sort of they're so far down the line that they didn't even realize that there might be something available to them. Not to mention all the people I know that are saying, what's frozen shoulder? Why can't I move my arm? Do you think that it's possible that this clinic, given the generation of women now that are speaking up about our health in a different way, could achieve the goals that you're looking at?
I think it's a start. $5.2 million sounds fantastic, which it is. We also have a lot of women in perimenopause. Like in this province, we're looking at probably 120,000 women plus. And so one clinic isn't going to do it for all of us. And so I think it's a great start. I think this government has done some really great things for women's health. We have our, many of our hormone therapy drugs covered by pharmacare here in the province, which is amazing and fantastic, but it's just a start. I think it's a drop in the bucket, and hopefully we can keep filling it.
With the closure of the Mature Women's Centre Clinic in 2017, I mean, it's almost been a decade. Where has it left Manitoba women to get their care?
All over the place. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, it's been a lot of piecemeal, a lot of conversations, a lot of research, a lot of social media, which is both plus and minuses there. But we're left a lot of times trying to figure things out on our own, and then challenging our own diagnosis or challenging our doctors. And it's been a struggle. My story to try to find the right care from the right specialists it puts a load on me. And it puts a load on all of us to try to figure all of that out. That's why I do what I do, is just to help relieve some of that load so that women can put their care plan together and be successful at it.
What were some of the things in your own story that you found were most significant? I know it's complicated, but if you were to pull out symptoms or health issues that you really wish you would have had more support for, what was happening with you?
Yeah, so my story really began with a symptom that we don't often think about relating to perimenopause, and that's actually incontinence. I had, coming out of the pandemic, a really hard time leaving my house. And I asked for a little support and care from my practitioners, and I got shuffled around a little bit. It was only when I started to say, "Hey, I'm really not comfortable with this kind of care, this kind of diagnosis," that I started to do my own research and say that this is actually related to some of the depression that I'm feeling, some of this, like, I don't feel like myself, some of the anxiety that I was having. I wasn't sleeping great. Like, my perimenopause journey didn't start with hot flashes. So I really had no idea that these were all part of the beginning of this. And so it got really hard for me to be able to figure out what was going on. But then I had to advocate for myself with my primary physician. And she wasn't comfortable talking about perimenopause or menopause, which even frustrated me more. I really hope that part of, the menopause clinic and women's health in this province goes towards educating and supporting our family doctors, and so that it's diagnosed earlier. But we all don't need menopause specialists either. Sometimes we just need information and we just need support. And I really wish I would have had that.
A really good example, and you're right to raise hot flashes, because it's not to minimize that, but sometimes I feel like it's like if I introduce one more menopause interview and we only talk about hot flashes, we're missing all of these things about our health.
Yes.
So here's to education. We'll see what this clinic can bring, and if it lives up to the promise and what Manitoba women need. Thank you, Louise.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy. Thanks for talking about this. It's really important.
Yeah, you take care. That's Louise Neal. She's a menopause wellness advocate and a menopause doula. So the 2026 provincial budget is promising that $5.2 million for the new Manitoba Menopause Clinic. We did reach out to the province asking more details about the new facility. I have a statement to read you that was sent to CBC. Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asaguera says, quote, "Our government is taking steps to restore and strengthen specialized menopause care in Manitoba after those services were cut in 2017 under the previous government. Through Budget 2026, we've committed $5.2 million to establish a new menopause clinic that will provide comprehensive interdisciplinary care," is the language they use to describe it. This clinic is intended to rebuild and expand access to the kind of specialized supports many Manitobans have been missing, including clinical care, education, and coordinated services in one place. We look forward to sharing more details, including how this clinic will improve access to care, where it will be located, and its new name in an upcoming announcement.
It's the Jewel of the Junos. The Junos Songwriters Circle is a showcase of stories and stripped-down performances from some of this year's exciting nominees, including Asanabi, Bahamas, Savannah Ray, James Barker, and more. The Junos Songwriters Circle, Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern and Atlantic, 2:30 in Newfoundland on CBC Radio 1. And catch the 2026 Juno Awards live from Hamilton at 8 p.m. Eastern on CBC and CBC Gem.
8:24 a.m. is the time right now. Well, next week we're on the road in Brandon, so we're going to play an artist from Brandon, Manitoba this morning, Boy Golden, getting a lot of attention for their work. This next artist is currently on tour, Boy Golden is, supporting a fellow Manitoban, William Prince, actually. We have Like a Child on CBC for you.
Left me here alone to die, here alone with my wicked ways. Who held my hand, led me down the stairs, left me with my cares and wicked ways. Well, I won't turn round again. No, I won't turn round again. Who shed a tear, who from their own eye let a diamond fly and turned away? match for my broom. They're no match for my tune. Just swept away. Knots in my legs, oh my aching back. When I make you laugh, they're swept away. What I got right now won't turn round again. What I got right now won't turn round again. A little like a child, I love you. A little like a child, I need you near. A little like a child, I love you. You only tell me what I want to hear. A little like a child, I love you. A little like a child, I keep you close. A little like a child, I love you. You only tell me what I want to know. What I want to know. You only tell me what I want to know. What I want to know.
That is Boy Golden and Like a Child on CBC. Let's get into what is happening on the Radio Noon call-in. If you're a regular listener, then you know that Marjorie Dowhouse has popped into the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
What are you guys talking about?
Well, we're going to talk about what a lot of people are talking about coming out of that budget, and that is PST being removed on food, prepared, processed food. So we want to know, what difference is it going to make for you and your family, your household? Will the reduction or removal of the PST on some foods make a difference for you financially? So give us a call and share your thoughts coming up on Radio Noon this afternoon.
All right. Thanks very much, Marge.
Thanks, Marcy.
So Marjorie Dowhouse is the host of Radio Noon. The call-in's between 12:30 and 1, and you can call that about the PST. Want to mention one more time here. I know it's late, and you're probably already figured this out, but schools in Evergreen School Division all closed today. That's because of road conditions being poor, and Mountain View isn't running buses in Ethelbert. Gilbert Plains Bus 2, Roblin Bus R5. Hopefully you're not waiting at the bus stop because it never came. You probably already know this because the school divisions would have alerted you, but I just want to mention it one more time. We also want to mention one more time that tonight there is a town hall happening in Brandon. So you might be able to still check if there's some spots available for you. This is part of our Communities in Focus initiative in Brandon. And so we have our executive producers and the executive producer of Communities in Focus, Nadia Kidwai, out in Brandon for tonight, 7 to 9 o'clock. And the town hall's at the backyard on Aberdeen in Brandon. The team will be there and simply asking for you to come and tell us what you need to hear from your public broadcaster about Brandon, about the area, and just overall, what do you need from CBC Manitoba? There's refreshments and there's some activities for the whole family as well, so it's completely available to you. If you want to check out cbc.ca/Manitoba and click on Communities in Focus, you'll be able to find out how to register for the town hall. It is on tonight and starts at 7 o'clock. Well, we're coming up to news time. I'll just mention the commuter line one more time just in case you need it. 204-788-3093. And Corey can pass along anything late in the drive that might be coming up. Right now, your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's chilly, it's windy, it's minus 12. That wind is going to stay strong through the day from the northwest, making our high of minus 8 feel even cooler. Transcona councillor Russ Wyatt says he plans to be at today's council meeting at Winnipeg City Hall. That's even though he was charged Tuesday with sexual assault and administering a noxious substance after a man told police he had been assaulted by another man he met online. Wyatt's lawyer, Evan Reutenberg, says his client is innocent. Mayor Scott Gillingham says the charges are concerning and Wyatt should take a leave from City Hall. City Council does not have authority to suspend members facing criminal allegations. A Manitoba non-for-profit sponsoring refugees says Canada's government is putting the lives of an Iranian family at risk. In 2024, Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada approved a request made by Hospitality House to help resettle a couple and their 2 daughters in Winnipeg. The family fled to Turkey over religious persecution they faced in Iran, but the family still needs to complete an interview biometrics, and a medical check before they can come to Canada. Elodie Furaha at Hospitality House says their refugee application has been stalled for 20 months. She says their Turkish residence permit has since expired, meaning they can be deported to Iran.
They saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but now where is the light for them right now? It looks like it wasn't the light that they are coming out of the tunnel. It looks like it was a train coming to crush them.
Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada says it tries to process most applications within established timelines, but due to high demand, times can vary. A Winnipeg woman says someone used her identity to open a Rogers account, and now she owes the company $1,300. Christina McKay discovered the charges after she noticed her credit score had taken a hit. McKay says the fraudulent account was opened in an apartment complex she lived in almost 10 years ago. She says Rogers is trying to convince her she is responsible for the account.
They sat there and then went, well, are you sure you didn't forget? Lots of people forget that they've opened accounts. And I'm like, forgetting to buy a pack of gum, I can understand. But opening up a cable account, that's a big leap.
After CBC reached out to Rogers Communications, McKay says the debt was removed from her Equifax credit profile the following day. Winnipeg police confirmed they are investigating a fraud claim. PST Inequity, Befakadu Abito, says the provincial government's plan to get rid of PST on certain prepared foods and snacks isn't fair. The supervisor at BWOW convenience store on Portage Avenue was disappointed to learn small, urban, mom-and-pop stores like his will still have to charge the tax.
There are lots of, our low-income community living in this area who use our corner store to buy their daily snacks, and that's not fair to them.
Premier Wab Kinew couldn't explain yesterday why different stores will be taxed differently, other than to say that is how the Finance Department drew up the regulations. Manitoba's government is promising an additional $40 million for the criminal justice system, but lawyers in that system say some of that money needs to be invested in the courtroom. This week's provincial budget includes millions for things like ankle monitors, policing, and corrections. Ben Wickstrom is Vice President of Prosecutions with the Manitoba Association of Crown Attorneys. He says more investments in enforcement generally mean greater workloads for prosecutors.
What we really feel is missing is sort of any investment in our place in the system, which is really in what is a critical middle part of the criminal justice system.
Wickstrom would like to see 50 new prosecutors phased in over time. The province says salary increases and aggressive recruitment have helped them hire new crowns and reduce the vacancy rate from 15% to 3.5%. And this morning we are learning NATO says Canada has reached a key funding milestone for the first time since 1990, hitting 2% of gross domestic product on defense spending this past fiscal year. Secretary General Mark Rutte notes it went above and beyond.
Many went much further. In fact, we saw 20% increase in what Europe and Canada spent on defense in 2025 as compared with 2024.
It is the first time all NATO members met that 2% goal, first agreed to in 2014. Canada's share works out to $63.4 billion. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is go to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So in our news department this morning, Heather Wells, Megan Ketchison, and Aaron Broman. Our producers, Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson, is the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Our Studio 15 crew, Abby Adeyemi, Darren Marash, and Corey Funk. On the show this morning with items, reporter Brittany Greenslade, and associate producers with work in the show, Sophia Peralta-Barone and Sierra Sanders. Thank you, everyone, for your work today. Appreciate you. Appreciate your work. Corey Funk, what do you know before we go?
Icy highways in eastern Manitoba this morning. Michelle says highway number 1 after Deacon's Corner heading towards Highway 12. Sheer ice, she says, so look out for that. Similar case if you're coming in from Dougal towards the city in the east perimeter, as well as from heading from Vida to Mitchell on the 302. Very, very slippery this morning.
Abby.
Yeah, sunny skies across the province this morning. Temperatures down south between -10 and -19. That's going to give way to some really strong winds from the northwest, and we see highs near -8 for most of the region. Up north, frigid close to -31, and the wind chill is still a concern.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening to CBC's Information Radio on 89.3. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Small programming notes here. Sitting in the host chair tomorrow will be Mr. Corey Funk for your listening pleasure. And then next week, Corey and I are off to Brandon. And so Monday and Tuesday, Julie Buckingham's going to be hosting right here on Information Radio. Take care, be well, Manitoba. Thanks for tuning in to 89.3. Remember, Brandon, we're coming for you. If you've got a pitch for us, just email us at radio893@cbc.ca, radio893@cbc.ca. And don't go anywhere this morning because The Current's coming up next, right here on CBC.